Chapter 1535. Qiao Yueqin shook her head, her face pale and her eyes filled with despair. Impossible, this is impossible. The jade token was given to me by my adoptive mother. How could she lie to me? June Linger waved her hand and ordered, "Guards! Drag Qiao Yueqin out and parade her through the streets. Moreover, tell me all of her evilness one by one. Let everyone understand that this Qiao Yueqin is just an imposter. Aren't you all fawning over Qiao Yueqin? Fawning over those in power? Then I will let you all understand that Qiao Yueqin is just an imposter. And that Yi Rong, betraying me for Qiao Yueqin, did you ever think that this would happen?" "Yes, miss." Two guards stepped forward, pulled Qiao Yueqin's body and dragged her out. "No, I don't want to go. Please let me go, I beg you." Qiao Yueqin's voice was filled with grief as she was dragged out. Her voice was getting further and further away, gradually disappearing into June Linger's ears. The next day, the entire June family stood to one side, respectfully sending Yun Luofeng off. June Linger held her hand tightly and said reluctantly, "Sister Yun, when will you come back?" "When I find Yun Xiao, I will come back." Yun Luofeng looked up at the distant sky and said lightly. Grandpa June sighed. "Little girl, you really don't need me to go with you? That hidden divine mountain is too dangerous. How can this old man be at ease with you?" It was not easy for him to obtain such an obedient granddaughter-in-law. How could he bear to leave her like this? Unfortunately, this granddaughter-in-law was very stubborn. He had tried to persuade her for an entire night, but to no avail. "No need." Yun Luofeng shook his head. "I will come back alive." In this world, there were too many people she could not let go of. How could she bear to be buried in that hidden divine mountain? Seeing that he was determined, Grandpa June did not say anything else. After a moment of silence, he took out 2 jade tokens and placed them in Yun Luofeng's hand. One of the jade tokens was the one he snatched from Yun Luofeng yesterday. It was the one he had placed in his daughter's swaddling clothes. However, the reason he stole the jade plate yesterday was not to steal Yun Luofeng's belongings, but to remember him. "Since my daughter gave this jade token to you, it belongs to you. It can block an attack for you when you are in mortal danger. Of course, you can only wear it on your neck. If you take it off, you won't be able to use it. Of course, this jade token could only block fatal attacks. If it wasn't a fatal attack, the jade token wouldn't be of any use. As for the other jade token, I placed a strand of my soul force in it." "Soul strength?" Hearing this, everyone in the June family turned to look at Grandpa June, their eyes filled with shock. What did soul power represent? Everyone knew it very well. This spiritual strength was like a strand of the old man's soul that was forcefully sealed in the jade tablet. If he wanted to recover that strand of spiritual strength, it would take a month. If you're in danger, just send your spiritual energy into the jade token. I'll sense it, and I'll be able to instantly come to your side no matter how far away you are. Looking at the jade token handed over by Grandpa June, Yun Luofeng would be lying if she said she was not touched. She and Grandpa June had only met twice. Even with their relationship with June Fengling, they were not this close. Chapter 1536. However, Grandpa June had sacrificed himself to such an extent for her. Her heart was not made of stone. How could she not be moved? "Thank you." Yun Luofeng took the jade token and held it tightly to his chest. His dark eyes flashed with a dazzling light. "Little Yun, you've never called me grandfather." Grandpa June glanced at Yun Luofeng resentfully. "Now that you're about to leave, aren't you going to call me?" Yun Luofeng's lips moved slightly and the corners of her lips curled into a shallow smile. "Grandfather." Her voice was very soft and light, but it fell heavily into Grandpa June's heart and filled him with pleasure. This grandfather was so pleasurable. If this little girl had not gone to find her husband, he would have made her stay and let her call him that every day. "I'm leaving. Take care." Yun Luofeng saluted with his fists. After saying this, he turned around and walked out of the courtyard. "Let go of me and let me in. I want to see Ling." Suddenly, a loud voice sounded from outside, causing June Ling to frown adorably. "Ling, is she looking for you?" June Xian looked at June Ling in surprise and asked. June Ling, nodded and looked at the guards at the door. Her voice was clear and cold. "Let her in." With Jun Ling's words, the guards did not stop her and allowed her to enter the courtyard. Yi Rong's eyes fell on Jun Ling. Her eyes were filled with guilt and apology. She was about to speak when the young girl's clear voice interrupted her. "Yi Rong, we're not that close. Don't call me Ling. Just call me Miss Ling, or like everyone else." Jun Ling pursed her lips. Although Chao Yueqin had caused her a lot of trouble, she had to thank her for one thing. She had allowed her to see Yi Rong's true colors. "Ling, I was deceived by her. That's why I said those things." Yi Rong panicked. She wanted to run towards Jun Ling, but was suddenly blocked by two guards. They kept her a meter away from Jun Ling. Yi Rong's heart turned cold at this moment. "You really don't intend to forgive me?" With tears in her eyes, she bit her lip and looked at the indifferent Jun Ling. "Yi Rong, have you forgotten what you said before? You said that you had to consider the Yi family before you approached Chao Yueqin. You, on the other hand, were only using me." Jun Linger laughed icily. "Why do you think I should forgive you?" Yi Rong's heart skipped a beat, and she was secretly annoyed. She had followed Chao Yueqin back then, but why did she say those words to Jun Ling, or just to show her sincerity? Who would have thought that Chao Yueqin was an imposter and she had even offended Ling? "Ling, you're not such a heartless person." A tear hung in the corner of Yi Rong's eye, and her gaze was filled with pain. "Father, I don't want to see her." Jun Ling pouted. "This woman is too despicable. She's even more despicable than those who curry favor with the powerful." "All right." Jun Xian stroked Jun Ling's head lovingly. "Then father will send someone to chase her out and have the Yi family leave Jun City forever. Is that all right?" Yi Rong's face drained of color and her body began to tremble. If the Yi family were to be forced to leave Jun City, she would be a sinner for the rest of her life. The elders in the family would never let her off. However, Jun Xian would not give her another chance to pester Jun Ling. He waved his hand and ordered the guards to throw her out. Jun Ling did not plead for the Yi family. She may be kind, but she could not tolerate any deceit. Yi Rong must pay the price for deceiving her. Chapter 1537. The Hidden God Mountain. It was the most dangerous place in the continent of the 9 provinces. Other than the endless number of spiritual beasts, there were also countless traps and traps. If one touched one of these traps, even if one was a spiritual god, they would vanish into thin air. That was why the Hidden God Mountain had such a name, a place that could even bury a spiritual god. One could imagine how dangerous it was. Of course, not all of the Hidden God Mountain was dangerous. The deeper one went, the more dangerous it was. As for the outside of the Hidden God Mountain, even if there were countless ferocious spiritual beasts, people could still leave alive. At this moment, inside the Hidden God Mountain, a woman in white slowly walked in. Her hair fluttered in the wind, and her beautiful yet evil face was shrouded in light. "Master." Little Mo left the grimoire and appeared before Yun Luofeng. He looked at the woman next to him and lightly pursed his lips. "Are you sure you want to enter the Hidden God Mountain?" "To be honest, I know nothing about the Hidden God Mountain, and I don't know what the situation is like inside." "I am sure." She could not let Yun Xiao face danger alone. No matter what happened, she would stay by his side. "Okay, if that's the case, then I will risk my life to accompany you." Little Mo smiled. After being alone for so many years, meeting Yun Luofeng was his life's fortune. How could he retreat in the face of danger? "Azure wings." Yun Luofeng did not speak, but called out. In an instant, a muscular azure wing was already standing behind Yun Luofeng, like a mountain protecting her safety. In the Hidden God Mountain, there were endless dangers. Therefore, she had to summon the puppet just in case. "Let's go." After saying this, she turned her head and looked at the endless mountain range. Her expression became determined. "Yun Xiao, wait for me. Soon I will find you." The Hidden God Mountain was full of danger. Yun Luofeng had just stepped in when she felt a sense of pressure. If the small tree was still here, she would at least have a protective talisman. Unfortunately, the small tree had fallen into a deep slumber and she could not rely on him. Because of this, Yun Luofeng was even more cautious. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, a murderous intent came from the grass. Yun Luofeng frowned and said, "Careful." What? At that moment, a group of skeletons stepped out from the underbrush. Each of these skeletons held a bone club in their hands. 2 clusters of dark green hellfire floated in their protruding eyes, making them look strange and eerie. All of them marched in an orderly manner, like a group of well-trained troops. "Master, it's the Skeleton King and his subordinates." This Skeleton King's strength is at the mid-level Saint Monarch, while the others are at least at the high-level Saint Venerable level, and most of them are at the low-level Saint Monarch level. Little Emo sucked in a breath of cold air. "If I'm not wrong, there should have been an army that came to this place and hid here. But I don't understand why these dead soldiers could survive in the form of skeletons and become so powerful." Yun Luofeng's heart sank. If it was a group of spirit beasts, she might still have a chance. However, what stood in front of her now was a group of skeletons. A dead skeleton that had no sense of pain. How could she fight against a group of skeletons? Chapter 1538. "Master, let's escape." Little Mo's voice sounded in his ear. "There is still a chance if we escape. Otherwise, we will die here." He did not expect to encounter the skeleton core as soon as he arrived at the Hidden God Mountain. Didn't they say that the outskirts of the Hidden God Mountain were not very dangerous? However, what Little Emo didn't know was that they were just unlucky. The skeleton core only patrolled once a month, but this time, they happened to run into them. "Yun Luofeng frowned and called out coldly. Yun immediately understood his master's meaning. He grabbed Yun Luofeng's waist with one hand and picked up Little Emo. With a swoosh, he rushed towards the group of skeletons. If they wanted to enter the Hidden God Mountain, they had to pass through this group of skeletons. If they retreated, it meant that they would not be able to enter. The ghostly green flames in the skeletons' eyes burned even brighter. The bone clubs in their hands carried a strong aura as they fiercely beat against Yun-I. Even though Yun-I was a puppet made of steel, he could not withstand the blows of the skeletons. Very quickly, his body became riddled with holes, as if he had been pierced by swords. Although the skeletons only held bone clubs in their hands, these clubs were sharper than any sharp weapon. With one blow, a hole would appear. If these bone clubs were to hit Yun Luofeng's body, it would not just be holes. Yun-I was just a puppet without a soul. He did not know pain. He only knew how to follow Yun Luofeng's orders and quickly run forward. Seeing Yun-I escape, the skeletons waved their bone clubs and chased after them. It seems that although these skeletons are already dead, they still know how to chase after the enemy. They are not like puppets like Yun-I. Yun Luofeng was silent for a while. "However, after this, I need to reforge Yun-I." Suddenly Yun-I stopped. Yun Luofeng looked up and saw a bottomless cliff in front of him. "Master, there is a problem with this cliff." Little Emo frowned. "There seems to be a restriction here. If you jump in, you will not be able to fly." Yun Luofeng turned to look at the hole that was chasing them, then at the bottomless cliff. His eyes turned cold and he ordered, "Yun-I, go down." Yun-I did not hesitate. Because he was a puppet, he did not show the slightest bit of fear. He expressionlessly jumped off the cliff. The strong wind whistled past her ears, making her unable to open her eyes. The sharp wind made her feel pain all over her body, as if there were knives cutting her skin. She hurriedly closed her eyes and waited for the landing. However, before she could land on the ground, she instantly lost consciousness. Her mind went dark and she didn't know what happened next. Yun Luofeng felt dizzy. Vaguely, he seemed to hear a voice calling out to him. "Girl, wake up, wake up." She frowned and opened her eyes impatiently. A young and handsome face entered her line of sight. The man in front of her was wearing a flaxen robe. He was handsome, and his tan skin made him look very healthy. His gray eyes contained a hint of worry. When he saw Yun Luofeng open her eyes, he was overjoyed. "Miss, you're awake?" Yun Luofeng was startled. He rubbed his temples and climbed out of bed. "I remember that I encountered a group of skeletons in the Hidden Divine Mountain. What is this place?" Chapter 1539. The man grinned. "This is the Mount of the Hidden Gods. Plus, there is no danger in the country you are in right now. Then Yun Luofeng heard everything from the man. It turned out that everyone in this place had come to the hidden god mountain tens of thousands of years ago and encountered danger. Whether it was being chased by skeletons or spirit beasts, some people would escape to this place. Adding on the fact that there were no spirit beasts here, they decided to live in seclusion here. Of course, some people wanted to leave, but once they arrived at the bottom of this cliff, there was no way out. Therefore, after so many years, this place has become its own country. Though the population is small, there is an imperial city and a market. It is no different from the outside world. However, no spiritual beasts or skeletons can enter this country, but who knows if they can find a chance to leave in the future. Therefore, there is a rule in this country. The strongest man of the younger generation can become the king of this country. The stronger ones of the older generation were absorbed by the group of elders. The marriage of the king needs to be decided by the elders. As a king, he has no right to marry the woman he loves the most. Only the strongest young woman can become the queen. Therefore, the position of the king and queen is not stable. If someone surpasses them, the stronger one can replace them. All in all, this is a country where strength speaks. The rule of the outside world where the throne is passed down from father to son does not work here. It is obvious that the man standing before Yun Luofeng is the king of this country. But, looking at the way he is dressed, it is obvious how poor the royal family is. They don't even have any decent clothes. No wonder these people want to leave this place. The handsome man scratched his head and asked with a smile, "I have told you everything. I wonder if you can tell me your name?" Yun Luofeng paused and said, "Yun Luofeng. These people have lived in seclusion for so many years. Even if she tells them her name, they won't know who she is. Therefore, she doesn't need to worry. Miss Yun, since you are here, you are now a citizen of our country. From now on, we need to spend the rest of our lives here." The man sighed, his brows were full of worry. He was born and raised in the Mount of the Hidden Gods. He has never seen the outside world and doesn't know what it is like. Can we really not leave this place? Yun Luofeng frowned. She had to leave. Yun Xiao was still waiting for her. That's right. Those who come here can't leave, the handsome man said with a smile. So, you can stay here in peace. By the way, I haven't told you my name. My name is Xianyuan. After saying this, the handsome man gave a few instructions to the palace maid beside him before leaving. Oh right. Yun Luofeng suddenly thought of Azure Wing and Little Emma. He hastily checked the situation of the temple and found that Azure Wing was lying on the grass with Little Mo sitting beside him. Yun Luofeng breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the two of them. Forget it. Since I'm already here, I'll just take things as they come. I believe I'll find a way to leave. In the bedroom, a gentle and beautiful woman was sitting on a chair, listening to the palace maid's report, and a cold light flashed across her eyes. Chapter 1540. What's the power of this new woman? Your Majesty, I don't know. The palace maid knelt on the ground respectfully and answered the woman's question. The gentle beauty scoffed. Observe that woman. If she's weak, then so be it. If she's strong, then send someone to kill her secretly. Yes, Your Majesty. The palace maid responded and retreated. The gentle beauty gripped the teacup in her hand tightly as a cold light flashed across her eyes. She had become the empress not because she was greedy for power, but because she had truly fallen in love with Xianyuan. For this, she had not hesitated to kill her own sister. That's right. In the beginning, the woman who had been chosen by the elders to be the empress was not her. Instead, it was her sister who was more powerful than her. In order to obtain Xianyuan, she had used poison to murder her sister. Then, she had stepped over her sister's dead body and ascended to the throne of the empress. How could she allow anyone to threaten her position now? Unfortunately, not only was her sister the empress chosen by the elders, she was also in love with Xianyuan. Therefore, in the 2 years since they had been married, this man had not touched her at all. Thinking of the past, the murderous intent in the empress' eyes intensified. With a crack, the teacup she was gripping tightly shattered. Your Majesty, why are you so angry? Suddenly, a soft laugh was heard. In an instant, a woman in a green dress entered the room. Her features were delicate and beautiful, like a lotus flower emerging from clear water. "Grand Tutor, why are you here?" The Empress's voice was respectful when she saw the woman. Like Yun Luofeng, this woman had also come from the outside world. However, her methods were too powerful. Whether it was poison or medicine, they were both extremely powerful. Especially in this country where there were no doctors, her position was highly respected. In particular, this woman could observe the stars at night and predict a person's life and death. Therefore, after a unanimous decision by the elders, she was conferred the title of Grand Tutor. "I know the woman that Wang Lin brought back," the woman in green said with hatred in her eyes. The Empress was a little surprised. Perhaps she had not expected the Grand Tutor to know Yun Luofeng. "Then what kind of hatred do you have between the two of you?" The green-robed woman sneered. "Naturally, there is a deep hatred between us. Queen, I should have told you before I came here. My father and I were misunderstood by the people of the world and were hunted down. We were forced to flee to the Poison Valley. After arriving at the Poison Valley, we were slaughtered by the Ghost Emperor. Other than me, who was lucky enough to escape, everyone else is dead. And the one who caused all of this is Yun Luofeng." Lin Youyu had never met Yun Luofeng, but he had firmly remembered this name over the years. If it wasn't for Yun Luofeng, Poison Valley wouldn't have been destroyed, and she wouldn't have had to watch as her father was killed, the queen said in shock. "This Yun Luofeng is actually so vicious?" "He's not just vicious." Lin Youyu's eyes grew colder and colder as he spoke with killing intent. "Do you know what the world thinks of Yun Luofeng? She specialized in snatching men, from centenarians to 10-year-old children. She would not let a single one of them go. 3 years ago, this woman tried to seduce my father and become the Madam of the Poison Valley. Who would have thought that my father would harshly reject her? As a result, she harbored hatred in her heart. Because of this, she found the people she had once seduced and destroyed the entire Poison Valley." Actually, Lin Youyu knew very well why the Poison Valley had been massacred. Chapter 1541. Because an elder of the Poison Valley had entered the Sorcerer Demon Clan's illusion and plotted against Yun Luofeng, causing Yun Luofeng's death, those who were on good terms with Yun Luofeng had encircled the Poison Valley. Of course, she could not say these reasons out loud. As for whether Yun Luofeng was dead or not, and whether the person whom the Empress had picked up was the Yun Luofeng that she was familiar with, it did not matter. After all, she had never seen Yun Luofeng in person and did not know what she looked like. However, just because her name was Yun Luofeng, she deserved to die. The Empress recovered from her shock and said angrily, "How can there be such a vicious woman in this world?" "That's right. Now that the Empress has picked her up, will she seduce the Empress?" "The Empress is also hot-blooded. What if she can't resist the temptation?" Lin Youyu's eyes flickered and her lips curled into a cold smile. "She won't even spare an old man. The Empress is so handsome, why would you give up? Besides, this woman is greedy for riches and will definitely not let you, the Empress, off." The Empress gritted her teeth when she heard this. "I had thought that if this woman was weak, I would let her go. But now I must get rid of her. Empress, don't worry. She is our common enemy. I will help you deal with her. However, she has finally fallen into my hands after so much difficulty. I don't want her to die too quickly." This country was her territory. No matter how powerful Yun Luofeng was, how could she compare to those elders? Hence, she had to make use of this opportunity to ruthlessly humiliate her. "That's right." The Empress nodded. "Grand Tutor, you have suffered so much, you should take revenge. This woman will not have a good ending if she falls into the Grand Tutor's hands." Lin Youyu laughed and swept her cold gaze towards the Empress. She did not say anything else and walked out. Once Yun Luofeng had recovered, she left the room. The Imperial Palace was different from the outside world. There were no guards at the entrance. She left the palace directly and arrived at the bustling market outside. From afar, she could see a group of people gathered in front of her. Those people's eyes were filled with worship and reverence as they all looked in one direction. "It's the Grand Tutor. I heard that the Grand Tutor has come out to make a prophecy again today. I wonder who would be so pitiful to have fallen for the Grand Tutor's prophecy. TSK, this imperial preceptor is really godly. If she says that others won't be able to live past midnight, then that person definitely won't be able to. Otherwise, the elder would not think so highly of her, and even give her a position that surpasses that of a king. It's just that the imperial tutor doesn't help people predict their lifespan. The imperial tutor will reject anyone who begs him to predict their lifespan. Unless she comes out herself to point someone out, that person will know that his time is up. Inside the tall building, a green-clothed woman was escorted by many palace maids as she walked up the tall building. She was like a monarch looking down on all living things, looking down on the group of humans below. Her expression was like that of a god who decided life and death. No one's life or death could escape her eyes. Predicting lifespan? Yun Luofeng, on the other hand, stopped in his tracks with interest. Little Mo, is there anyone in this world who has such power? A moment later, Little Mo's voice sounded in his soul. I've never heard of it. Even the most powerful prophet 1,000 years ago didn't have this kind of power. I didn't expect that there would be someone with such mysterious power in this small country. Perhaps it was because he wanted to know how this woman would predict, so Yun Luofeng did not rush to find a way out. Instead, he stopped and observed the woman on the high platform. Chapter 1542. Everyone. A palace maid stepped forward. It's the same as before. Whoever the pill in our imperial tutor's hand hits will be the person who will lose his life in a few days. Pill? Yun Luofeng frowned. She turned to look at the crowd and asked, why did the Grand Tutor use a pill instead of personally announcing the lifespan of others? That person glanced at Yun Luofeng with a look of disdain. You don't even know the Grand Tutor's personality? The Grand Tutor is kind by nature. She couldn't bear to say that someone's lifespan is about to end, so she used this method to avoid it. After the person finished speaking, she ignored Yun Luofeng and stared nervously at the woman in green on the high platform. Yun Luofeng was speechless. If she really couldn't bear it, she wouldn't have ended someone's lifespan. Her method was not desirable in the first place. Everyone, our Grand Tutor has already made her decision. I hope that the person she has chosen will prepare for his funeral. The palace maid's voice rang out again, making the crowd even more nervous. At this moment, the Grand Tutor on the high platform had already made her move. A pill was flicked out by her and instantly hit a person's throat. Don't look at how the pill came from far away. In fact, it didn't have much power. It didn't even turn red. Even so, the person who had been hit knelt on the ground with a thud. His face was deathly pale and filled with despair. Everyone else shook their heads. Their faces were filled with sympathy and pity, but no one went to help the person up. Yun Luofeng wasn't like the others. When she saw the pill land on the person's throat, her face darkened and a sharp light flashed across her eyes. Little Mo, do you understand? After a while, Little Mo's voice rang out from her soul. Look carefully. This pill has been smeared with poison. As long as it touches the skin, he will die within 5 days. I was wondering if there was someone in this world who could end someone's lifespan. I didn't think that they would use such a vicious method. Just now, those people had said that the Grand Tutor wouldn't accept anyone who begged her. She would only use this method to end someone's lifespan. It was obvious that this method was very accurate. It wasn't that the youth who had been hit by the pill would die, but the pill had been smeared with poison. How could he not die? Master, are the people of this country stupid? Little Mo was speechless. This woman who was called the state preceptor obviously didn't have any real ability, but she was able to fool these ignorant people. They're not stupid. It's just that there are no doctors or poison masters in this country, so they don't know that the pills are poisonous. Besides, the citizens of this country had been isolated from the outside world for so many years, so how could they know about the schemes of the outside world? It was only natural for him to be deceived. Master, aren't you going to save that young man? I've never met him before. Why would I save him? Yun Luofeng shook his head. If it has nothing to do with me, I won't interfere. More importantly, in this place, power was everything. If she went to save a person who was determined to die, it would definitely attract the attention of the elders in the country. Perhaps they might even force her to be the empress. Would she do such a thankless task? Yun Luofeng turned around and did not look at the situation in front of him any longer. He turned around and walked towards the other side of the street. On the tall platform, Lin Yuyu seemed to have sensed something. Her clear eyes looked towards Yun Luofeng in the crowd, as killing intent flashed within them. Chapter 1543. Yun Luofeng. I will not let you go. She looked away and ordered the palace maid beside her, tell him that he will die in 5 days. With that, he walked down the high platform and left in a carefree manner. For the whole day, Yun Luofeng searched for a way to leave. Unfortunately, there seemed to be some kind of restriction placed at the bottom of the cliff. He could not fly. Otherwise, he could have flown out of this place. Little Mo, it looks like we can't just keep searching like this. I need to know where the restriction is set up. Only by finding the restriction will we be able to leave. Yun Luofeng slowly walked into the room and spoke after a moment of silence. Before little Mo, who was in the grimoire, could answer her, the door was opened. A handsome man in a flaxen robe walked in, led by a group of guards. Miss Yun, it seems that your body has recovered well. The man was surprised. Even though jumping off the cliff would not kill her, but she would definitely be severely injured. But she had recovered in less than a day? Yun Luofeng took a sip of tea and asked, Can I ask you a question? Please ask, Miss Yun. Xian Yuan grinned, his expression simple and honest. I will tell you everything I know. I just want to ask if there is any special place in your country. Special? Xian Yuan pondered for a while before replying. There is a forbidden area at the back of the mountain. Those who enter the forbidden area will lose their lives. After a long time, no one has entered it. If there is a special place, it would be this place. Forbidden area? Yun Luofeng paused. Can you take me to the forbidden area to have a look? Xian Yuan smiled bitterly and shook his head. In order to prevent innocent people from dying, the elders do not allow anyone to enter the forbidden area unless they have the token of an elder. So, there is nothing I can do. For some reason, Yun Luofeng had a premonition that she could definitely find a way to leave the forbidden area. Then can I trouble you to take me to see the elders of your country? Xian Yuan was silent for a moment and nodded. Okay, come with me. In this country, the royal family and the elders were not high and mighty. On the contrary, if someone wanted to see them, they only needed to report and receive permission to enter. This was why Xian Yuan brought Yun Luofeng to the elders' hall. At this moment, within the elders' courtyard, all the elders were discussing something, and their faces were filled with worry. Right at this moment, someone came to report that Xian Yuan had brought an unfamiliar woman to see him. Xian Yuan brought a woman to see us? The oldest old man was stunned. He frowned and said, Could it be that Xian Yuan wants to take a concubine? That won't do. We won't allow him to fool around. In this country, the number of women was obviously less than the number of men. As such, polygamy was not allowed in order to prevent other men from not having a wife. Even if Xian Yuan was a king, he could only have one queen. Unless the queen died in an accident, then he could remarry. Let them come in first. Let's see what's going on, another elder suggested. Hearing this, the elderly man nodded slightly. Let them in. After a while, the door was opened, and a ray of light shone in from outside. The brilliant light enveloped the man and woman at the door. The woman was a peerless beauty that could topple a city. Her pitch-black eyes faintly contained an evil glint, and her expression was somewhat lazy and satisfied. Chapter 1544. All the elders' eyes were filled with shock. Whether it was the queen or the grand tutor, they were all great beauties in the country. However, compared to this woman in white, they were worlds apart. No wonder the monarch had brought this woman to find them. Monarch. The elderly man frowned slightly. Why did you bring this lady here? Although this woman was beautiful, in their country, power was everything. No matter how beautiful she was just a vase. Great elder. Xian Yuan's expression was respectful. Lady Yun wants to go to the forbidden area at the back of the mountain. Please allow her. No. The great elder's expression darkened. He said sternly, What kind of place is the forbidden area? No one who has gone there has ever returned alive. We will not allow anyone to step into that place again. You'd better go back. Lady Yun. Xian Yuan turned to Yun Luofeng and smiled bitterly. As you can see, the elders do not allow you to go there. To be honest, Xian Yuan did not intend to let Yun Luofeng go to the forbidden area. After all, that place was too dangerous. Wouldn't it be courting death for a woman like her? Yun Luofeng looked up at the elders. What if I say that the forbidden area has a way to allow you to leave this place? What? Yun Luofeng's words instantly stirred up a storm in the elders' hearts. The forbidden area had a way to allow them to leave this damned place? It had to be said that to the elders, leaving the bottom of the cliff was the most important thing. If what Yun Luofeng said was true, could they take the risk and give it a try? The elders hesitated and looked at each other. Finally, they turned to look at the great elder and waited for his decision. Just as the great elder was about to speak, a chuckle came from outside the house. A woman in a green dress walked in with the queen. There was a faint smile on her face as she looked at Yun Luofeng with her clear eyes. At this moment, the queen also saw Yun Luofeng's face. Her heart was filled with jealousy and anger. She, who did not think much of it, did not expect that the woman the monarch had picked up would be so beautiful. If she did not die, how could she be at ease? Fortunately, this idiot had offended a great person like the imperial tutor. How could he continue to live unscathed? Elders, Lin Yoyu retracted her gaze and sneered, "Don't be fooled by this woman. I've already predicted that there's no way to help you leave. If there really is a way to leave the forbidden area, how could I not know about it?" The elders hesitated again. Indeed, they had all seen the abilities of the imperial preceptor. If there really was a way to leave the forbidden grounds, how could the imperial preceptor not know? Also, Lin Yoyu paused, his sharp gaze sweeping towards Yun Luofeng. "Yesterday, I observed the stars and discovered that a woman will come to our country today. Moreover, this woman will one day cause a destructive blow to our country." In the beginning, the elders did not like Xian Yuan bringing a woman to see them, but they did not show any unfriendliness. Now that they heard Lin Yoyu's words, all their gazes turned to Yun Luofeng. Their eyes were filled with vigilance and doubt. "King, this woman's origins are unknown and she will bring disaster to the entire country." The great elder pondered for a moment and said, "Therefore, you should immediately chase her out. From now on, she is not allowed to take another step in." Chapter 1545. Lin Yoyu narrowed her eyes. Chasing Yun Luofeng out was not what she wanted. "Great elder, I've already said that this woman will bring disaster to the country. We will only be spared if she dies." The elders were stunned. They had lived here for so long and it had always been peaceful and peaceful. There had never been any conflict or struggle. Therefore, it was difficult for them to get over the mental barrier of killing someone. Lin Yoyu's eyes flashed and she continued to tempt them. "Elders, do you think it's more worthwhile to sacrifice her alone or to let the entire country perish? Indeed, even if they were sinners and killed this unknown woman, it was better than letting everyone in the country die." The great elder sighed softly. "Men, capture this woman and burn her to death." "Elder." Xian Yuan's expression changed. "Isn't it too one-sided to think that Lady Yun will destroy the country just because of the Grand Tutor's words?" In reality, Xian Yuan had never had a good impression of Lin Yoyu. This woman could decide the life and death of people with a wave of her hand, causing countless people to face terror. Yet she stood high and mighty and accepted the worship of the world. Did she not think that her actions were cruel? Now, she had casually decided to kill Yun Luofeng. How could a person's life be taken so easily? "King, as the king of the country, you should consider the entire country." The great elder frowned. "You can't be willful now. Back then, you were so willful that you didn't want to marry the queen and insisted on thinking about someone who had passed away. When will you start thinking about the bigger picture?" Xian Yuan's body trembled. What happened back then was a pain that he could never erase. Even now, the wound in his heart had not healed. Yun Luofeng laughed at the fact that these people had casually decided his life and death. "What are you laughing at?" Lin Yoyu's expression turned cold. "Do we know each other?" Yun Luofeng glanced at Lin Yoyu and curled his lips. If they didn't know each other, would this woman want to kill him? I'm just stating my prophecy. It has nothing to do with you. Is that so? Yun Luofeng stroked his chin and smiled. Today, in the market, I saw you determine the life and death of a person. I wonder what illness that person has, and when he will die. Lin Yoyu looked at Yun Luofeng impatiently. He doesn't have any illness. If Yama wants him dead, no one can stop him. Moreover, his lifespan is less than 5 days. Are you sure no one can stop it? Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes, a dangerous light in them. Lin Yoyu's heart skipped a beat. For some reason, a bad premonition surged from the bottom of her heart, but she still braced herself and said, "That's right. No one can stop it." Yun Luofeng didn't say anything else. He turned to look at Xian Yuan and said, "Go and summon that person. I can stop him from dying." "Miss Yun, are you sure?" Xian Yuan was very surprised. To prevent others from dying, was that even possible? Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a smile. "So what if he's the king of hell? I'm sorry, but I've always liked to snatch lives from the king of hell." The last sentence was naturally directed at Lin Yoyu. Lin Yoyu's expression was very ugly. The uneasiness in her heart grew stronger, but she did not know why. All right. To be honest, Xian Yuan also did not believe that Yun Luofeng could snatch lives from the king of hell. However, this was indeed the only way to save her. Thus, he did not hesitate and ordered someone to bring the person who was about to die today. Chapter 1546. Many people had witnessed what had happened at the market, so it was very easy to find the culprit. In a short while, the despairing young man was brought over. "Let's begin." Yun Luofeng slowly walked towards the young man who was sitting paralyzed on the ground. With a flip of her hand, a silver needle wrapped in cloth appeared in her hand. The entire elder's room was silent as everyone stared at Yun Luofeng quietly. After Yun Luofeng disinfected the silver needle in her hand, she slowly pierced it into the young man's body. With a groan, the entire silver needle was buried in his body. As the silver needle was buried, Yun Luofeng's spiritual power was slowly channeled in. Soon, the young man's body was covered in silver needles and his pale face began to recover. However, no one had any hope. After all, the Grand Tutor's power was obvious and no one could escape her prophecy. This poor young man was the same. Done. Time passed slowly. As these 2 words rang out, Yun Luofeng placed her palm on the young man's chest. With a bang, the silver needles that had been buried in his body were instantly shaken out. At the same time, the young man spat out a mouthful of dark green blood. Lin Yoyu's face was ashen and a cold look flashed across her eyes. Even if this woman's medical skills were brilliant and could cure this young man, so what? 5 days was enough for him to use all his means to kill him. However, Yun Luofeng's next words abruptly destroyed Lin Yoyu's plan. As this matter is of great importance, in order to prevent others from resorting to murder, let her stay in the elder's room for the next 5 days. I hope that all of you can keep an eye on her. Yun Luofeng turned to look at the elders and spoke plainly. The elders still did not believe in Yun Luofeng's abilities. However, in order to convince Yun Luofeng of his loss, they had agreed. This country was isolated from the rest of the world and its residents were very simple. They would definitely do what they promised, so Yun Luofeng left in peace. Elders. Lin Yoyu frowned slightly as a cold light flashed across her eyes. Before she could finish her sentence, Xian Yuan interrupted her coldly. Grand Tutor, so what if we give her 5 days? If this young man dies, it proves that your prophecy is correct. If he is still alive, it proves that you are only SOS. I wonder if the Grand Tutor has the courage to wait for 5 days? In 5 days he would have a chance to think of a way to save Yun Luofeng. Lin Yoyu's face was deathly pale. He clenched his fists tightly as a cold light flickered in his eyes. Imperial Tutor, there will be a decision in 5 days. Don't worry, Imperial Tutor, the great elder said. Lin Yoyu fiercely flung his sleeves, turned around and walked out. She also rejoiced in her heart, hoping that Yun Luofeng's medical skills would not be able to cure her poison. The youth's face was still ashen. His trust in Lin Yoyu made it impossible for him to believe that he could live for another 5 days. In his heart, he had already sentenced himself to death. 5 days passed quickly. In these 5 days, the citizens of the country all knew about the bet between Yun Luofeng and Lin Yoyu. Of course, everyone scoffed at Yun Luofeng for overestimating himself. The imperial tutor was like a deity. How could there be any error in her judgment? That woman was obviously stalling for time in order to live for 5 more days. Unfortunately, 5 days later, she still couldn't escape death. However, in order to personally witness the fate of becoming the imperial tutor's enemy, these people did not sleep on the 4th night. Instead, they ran to the palace and stood outside the elder's room for an entire night, just to witness the pitiful youth's death. Chapter 1547. Under the crowd's expectant gaze, the door to the elder's chamber was slowly pushed open. The first person to step out of the door was an elderly man. The elderly man's face was expressionless, but a shrewd light shone in his old eyes. However, he did not speak in the face of the puzzled crowd. "Elder, what's the situation? Is that young man dead? Should we take care of his funeral arrangements?" In the end, a young man could not help but ask the question in his heart. However, no one believed that the young man was still alive. Anyone who had been declared dead by the Grand Tutor's judgment would undoubtedly die. The Grand Elder did not reply. He turned his body slightly to the side and revealed the entire room to the crowd. In the room, the young man's eyes were filled with bewilderment and astonishment, but most of it was the excitement that came from the depths of his soul. "He's not dead." The Grand Tutor had declared that he would not live for more than 5 days. Now that 5 days have passed, he's actually still alive. What else could be more exciting than this? The rest of the crowd was also stunned on the spot, as if they could not believe what they were seeing. This young man is actually not dead. The Grand Tutor's prediction could be wrong? Behind the crowd, Lin Yoyu, who was dressed in a green robe, stared at the young man who had just stepped out of the room with a pale face. She bit her lips and began to tremble. Impossible! Her poison skills are exquisite and no one in the entire Poison Valley can compare to her. But Yun Luofeng has actually managed to cure the poison? At this moment, an icy coldness enveloped her entire body, making her feel as if she had fallen into an ice house. Soon after, a vague sense of unease rose from the bottom of her heart. She turned around and was about to leave this place. Suddenly, a tall figure appeared in front of her and blocked her path. Then, a man's magnetic and hoarse voice rang out. "Lord Grand Tutor, where are you going?" Lin Yoyu's body suddenly froze. She raised her head mechanically and saw a handsome and dashing face. However, the smile on that face made her tremble with fear. "Empress, didn't you say that no one can stop this young man's death?" Xianyuan laughed icily. "Now, what else do you have to say?" Lin Yoyu laughed awkwardly. "That was only a coincidence. Besides, my predictions have never been wrong." "Really?" Just as Lin Yoyu finished speaking, an evil voice came from the side. In that instant, Lin Yoyu's eyes were filled with rage. He turned his head and glared at the woman in white who was walking towards him. Under the morning light, the woman's clothes were whiter than snow. Her beauty could topple a city, and her every frown and every smile was magnificent. However, only Lin Yoyu gritted his teeth in hatred towards the woman walking towards him. "You have the ability to determine the life and death of others?" Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and swept them over. The smile on his lips was filled with evil. "Then, I wonder if you can find someone who is about to die among these people?" Ever since Xianyuan had blocked Lin Yoyu's path, everyone's gazes had landed on her. Now that they heard Yun Luofeng's words, everyone felt their bodies tremble as they nervously stared at Lin Yoyu. Although that pitiful young man had survived, they were still extremely fearful of the imperial tutor's abilities. It was because of this that they were so terrified. Lin Yoyu's expression changed. "I don't casually determine the life and death of others. Otherwise, my abilities will go awry. Only under special circumstances will I be able to." Yun Luofeng did not have the patience to listen to Lin Yoyu's words. She raised her brow and said, "Xianyuan, please snatch her space ring for me." Chapter 1548. Empress. The great elder frowned when he saw that Xian Yuan was about to make a move after hearing Yun Luofeng's words. He hurriedly stopped her and said, "Even though the Grand Tutor's judgment is wrong this time, we are still well aware of her previous abilities. I can let your friend go, but you cannot disrespect the Grand Tutor." Xian Yuan slowly walked in front of Lin Youyu. He raised his hand and firmly grasped Lin Youyu's clothes in his hand. "Empress, stop." The great elder's expression was extremely ugly as he quickly stepped forward to stop Xian Yuan. However, it was too late. Xian Yuan had snatched the space ring from Lin Youyu's hand and handed it to Yun Luofeng. Even he did not know why he trusted this woman so much. She had even disregarded the elder's orders. "Empress!" The elders flew into a rage. Perhaps they had never thought that Xian Yuan would disregard their orders for the sake of a woman. However, before the elders could vent their anger, they saw Yun Luofeng take out a pill from the space ring. This pill was what Lin Youyu used to determine a person's life and death. Just from the smell alone, they could recognize it. Everyone was dumbstruck when they saw Yun Luofeng take out the pill. They clearly did not understand her intentions. It is said that because you cannot bear to do so, you will not personally determine a person's life and death. Instead, you use this to speak on your behalf? Yun Luofeng played with the pill in her hand as a smile curled on the corners of her lips. Her evil eyes glanced at Lin Youyu. Lin Youyu's face was deathly pale as she clenched her fists tightly. Since this woman knew that the pill was poisonous, why did she hold it in her hand? Could it be that she was not afraid of poison? "That's right, this is the pill." Without waiting for Lin Youyu to answer, Xian Yuan answered for her. "Since that's the case, I wonder if the Grand Tutor is willing to take this pill?" Yun Luofeng looked at Lin Youyu with a forced smile as she asked sinisterly. Lin Youyu took 2 steps back and said, "This pill cannot be eaten." "You can't eat it, but you can touch it?" Yun Luofeng's smile grew even wider. "In that case, are you willing to take the pill?" In reality, even though Lin Youyu was born in the Poison Valley, he was not immune to all poisons. Usually, when she used this pill, she would wrap it with her spiritual power. She did not dare to let it come into contact with her skin, so she did not end up poisoned. But now, after hearing Yun Luofeng's words, Lin Youyu took 2 steps back again, and panic flashed across his eyes. Xian Yuan seemed to sense something. He stretched out his hand, wanting to take the pill from Yun Luofeng's hand and force Lin Youyu to take it. Unfortunately, before he could touch the pill, Yun Luofeng retracted his hand. "If you want to die, you can try." Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous glint flashed across his eyes. Xian Yuan scratched his head and chuckled. "You'll be fine even if you hold it. If something happens to me, you'll definitely have a way to save me." Hearing this, Yun Luofeng glanced at Xian Yuan before turning his gaze back to Lin Youyu. "This pill is yours. Why don't you have the guts to accept it?" Lin Youyu's eyes flickered and there was a sinister look in his eyes. "Who knows if you've poisoned the pill in an attempt to harm me?" Yun Luofeng smiled. "Under the watchful eyes of so many people, how am I supposed to poison it?" "No, I should call you the eldest miss of the Poison Valley." In this hidden divine mountain, the only person she had ever offended was the Poison Valley. Yun Xiao and the others also thought that the Poison Valley had harmed her, so they had chased after the Poison Valley. Therefore, only the people from the Poison Valley could hate her to the core. Chapter 1549. Panic flashed across Lin Youyu's eyes when her identity was exposed by Yun Luofeng, but she pretended to be calm and said, "I don't understand what you mean." In any case, she would never admit that she had a grudge against Yun Luofeng. "Grand Tutor, she's right. You are the eldest lady of the Poison Valley." A gentle and beautiful voice rang out from behind the crowd. When the crowd dispersed, a gentle-looking woman slowly walked over. Lin Youyu's face darkened when she saw the gentle and beautiful woman. "Grand Tutor, what do you mean by that?" The Empress's beautiful eyes swept towards Lin Youyu as she bit her lip. "Grand Tutor, it's best that you don't deny it now. 5 days ago, you came to find me and told me about the grudge between you and Yun Luofeng. You even slandered her for seducing your father. With such a deep grudge between you and her, it's not strange that you want to frame her." Boom. Lin Yoyu's entire body surged with rage as she glared angrily at the gentle and beautiful face behind her. Empress. Grand Tutor, I've pretended to trust you all this while because I wanted to avenge my sister. Lin Yoyu covered her mouth as tears flowed down from her eyes. However, her words caused Xian Yuan's body to tremble and his tightly clenched fists made cracking sounds. Empress, what did you just say? The Empress lowered her eyes as a sinister light flashed across her eyes. After a long while, she raised her head and her eyes were lovely and moving. Empress, I didn't want to say it at first. The real culprit behind my sister's murder is the Grand Tutor. Her finger instantly pointed at Lin Yoyu as her voice was filled with hatred. However, the people of our country have too much trust in the Grand Tutor. No one would believe me even if I said it. Now, I don't want to see her hurt any more innocent people, so I decided to expose this matter. As she spoke, Lin Yoyu slowly took out a cloth bag from her lapel and carefully opened it. In an instant, a brown pill was reflected in everyone's eyes. I picked up this pill after the Grand Tutor had left it behind. It hasn't passed through Miss Yun's hands. I wonder if the Grand Tutor dares to let this pill come into contact with your skin? In an instant, everyone turned to look at Lin Yoyu, their eyes filled with doubt. Lin Yoyu trembled with anger. Queen, don't forget that 2 years ago, you were the one who begged me to help you deal with your sister. You were the one who killed her. Now you want to frame me? The queen covered her mouth in surprise, tears falling from her eyes. She is my sister. How could I harm my sister's life? State Preceptor, in order to get rid of suspicion, you want to pour dirty water on my head. Is this appropriate? Lin Yoyu did not expect that the queen would step forward at this time and frame him. When did he kill her sister? 2 years ago, the queen bought a poison from him, and then her sister died suddenly. Through his examination, he found out that the poison that caused her sister's sudden death was the poison that the queen had bought. She had thought that she had something on the queen and could do whatever she wanted in this country from now on. She did not expect that because of her concealment, this woman would be so insidious as to frame her. Grand Tutor! Xian Yuan roared. His eyes turned red and filled with blood vessels. You killed Qing'e? His childhood sweetheart, the wife he had fallen in love with, had been murdered by the Grand Tutor? Chapter 1550. If he did not tear this woman into pieces, how could he vent the hatred in his heart? Lin Yuyu laughed coldly. Empress, do you really think that your actions will allow you to stay in your position? You've seen what happened to me. Unless you don't have any jealousy in your heart, once you do, you will be doomed eternally. She had underestimated Yun Luofeng from the beginning. That was why she had lost so badly. The Empress was an extremely jealous woman and could not tolerate anyone around the Empress. If she wanted to deal with Yun Luofeng, she would definitely suffer a crushing defeat. The Empress' eyes darkened. When she looked up, there was a pitiful look in her eyes once again. Grand Tutor, I don't understand what you mean. Lin Yoyu scoffed. You know it very well. After saying that, she did not say another word and her expression was cold. Grand Tutor, what exactly is going on? The Great Elder was silent for a moment before he asked angrily. In an instant, everyone looked at the Grand Tutor. Under everyone's gaze, Lin Yoyu's expression became uglier and uglier. Yun Luofeng glanced at the Empress. If he was not mistaken, the first time Lin Yoyu had brought the Empress to the Elder's room, the Empress had looked at him with an unfriendly gaze. There was even a hint of anger in her gaze. But now she was speaking up for him? Yun Luofeng faintly narrowed his eyes. Soon after, he turned his head towards Lin Yoyu and said with a faint smile, Actually, this matter is very simple. This pill has been smeared with a lethal poison. Anyone who touches it will die within a few days. So, it's not that the Grand Tutor can determine a person's life or death. It's just that, if she poisons someone, that person will not die. Swoosh! The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone's anger seemed to have been ignited. However, they still restrained the impulse in their hearts and quietly waited for Lin Yoyu's explanation. Lin Yoyu laughed coldly and did not speak. It was as if she had tacitly agreed with Yun Luofeng's words. Grand Tutor! The Great Elder finally could not control himself and angrily berated, Is what she said true? You don't have the power of prophecy. All of this was caused by your own means? Lin Yoyu's lips curled into a mocking smile. Her eyes were filled with mockery. Her gaze slowly turned towards the great elder. She raised her eyebrows and coldly said, "This is only because you are too stupid. Who can you blame?" In other words, it was because they were too stupid that they were deceived by him. Since that was the case, who did they want to blame? At that moment, the crowd could no longer control themselves. They swarmed towards Lin Yoyu, wanting nothing more than to tear this woman into pieces. The great elder did not stop the impulsive crowd. He clenched his fists so tightly that they made cracking sounds. The reason why this woman was able to determine the life and death of others was because the people she determined to be dead had all been killed by her. What was laughable was that he actually believed in her without a shred of doubt and even worshipped her like a god. Damned girl, how dare you lie to us? You'll definitely die a horrible death. I'm going to tear you into pieces right now to avenge the blood feud of our fellow countrymen. Go to hell, hurry up and go to hell. You evil woman, you nearly caused me to lose my life. If I don't torture you to death, I won't be able to dispel the hatred in my heart. Among the crowd, the most furious was the young man who had been saved by Yun Luofeng. If it had not been for Yun Luofeng, he knew that he would not have lasted past the 5th day. Chapter 1551. But it was Lin Yoyu who had caused all of this. Apart from that, the people who had lost their loved ones to Lin Yoyu were also furious. They took out their weapons and slashed at Lin Yoyu's limbs. Ah! Lin Yoyu let out a heart-wrenching scream from the intense pain. Her entire body was drenched in blood, and she trembled uncontrollably. Yun Luofeng. It was all Yun Luofeng's fault. If not for this woman, she would not have ended up like this. Thinking of this, she glared at Yun Luofeng maliciously. She bit her tongue fiercely and spat out a mouthful of blood. Yun Luofeng, I curse you. In the end, your fate will be worse than mine. Ha! She laughed arrogantly. Her laughter was filled with insolence and arrogance, as if she didn't put anyone in her eyes. Xian Yuan panicked. Miss Yun, what should we do? A curse made with blood from the tip of her tongue will definitely come true. Yun Luofeng's expression remained calm. So what? The curse is just a curse. I would not even fear the emperor himself. Why would I be afraid of a curse? Miss Yun. Xian Yuan's brows were filled with worry. In their country, there was a saying that a curse made from blood from the tip of the tongue was the most powerful and would almost always come true. So, when she heard that the target of Lin Yoyu's curse was Yun Luofeng, the queen subconsciously heaved a sigh of relief. A person could only curse once. Thus, she had escaped this calamity. Yun Luofeng's evil eyes swept toward Xian Yuan. Which is stronger, the power of the curse or the rules of the world? Xian Yuan was stunned. He looked at Yun Luofeng in confusion. It must be the rules of the world. Hearing this, Yun Luofeng laughed. Even if the world cannot restrain me, what can a curse do to me? She laughed coldly. Her brows were furrowed. Furthermore, if the heavens want me dead, I will destroy them first. If someone wants me dead, I will destroy his entire family first. If a god wants to kill me, I will destroy his entire family. Like this, I want to see who can kill me now. Yun Luofeng had never feared the heavens. Would she be afraid of a small curse? If someone wanted to kill her, she would first make them disappear. Perhaps Xian Yuan had been shocked by Yun Luofeng's earth-shattering words and was speechless for a long time. The great elder was very dissatisfied with her words and unconsciously frowned. Miss Yun, I am very grateful to you for revealing the imperial tutor's true identity. However, the heavens are not something you can insult. The laws of heaven and earth are not something that ordinary people can break. We need to be fearful of the gods of heaven and earth. Yun Luofeng coldly glanced at the great elder, stopping him from chattering away. It's your business if you're afraid of the world, but I've never had anything to fear. Since you worship the gods so much, why didn't the gods come to save you? In this country, the gods of heaven and earth were the people's faith. They maintained a sense of respect for the illusory existences like the gods. But, after hearing Yun Luofeng's words, the crowd fell silent. I think that this girl is right. We've worshipped the heavens for so many years, but we're still trapped in this place. Furthermore, if it wasn't for our faith in the gods, we wouldn't have thought of the imperial tutor as the savior sent by the gods. That's why we've fallen for her trick. I think that we should think of a way to leave by ourselves. We shouldn't rely on the illusory gods. The crowd's voices made the great elder's expression turn increasingly ugly. However, he could not find any words to refute. Chapter 1552. Yun Luofeng did not give him a chance to speak and continued to look at Xian Yuan. Take me to the forbidden area at the back of the mountain. Xian Yuan was stunned and subconsciously looked up at Great Elder. Under his questioning gaze, the first elder finally sighed and helplessly gave up. You can go. Great Elder. The queen's face was pale. That forbidden area is too dangerous. Those who go there will most likely die. Isn't this forcing people to their deaths? Of course, the queen did not say this because she was worried about Yun Luofeng. After all, she wanted Yun Luofeng to be turned to ashes. She only understood Xian Yuan and understood that if Great Elder agreed, Xian Yuan would definitely personally take Yun Luofeng to the forbidden area at the back of the mountain. Therefore, even if she hated Yun Luofeng to the core, she still did not want Great Elder to agree to her request. Xian Yuan's tone was a little impatient. Great Elder has already agreed. What are you saying? The queen's body stiffened and she lowered her head slightly. She looked very wronged and bit her lip tightly. After a long time, Yun Luofeng's lazy voice sounded again. I can go to the forbidden area at the back of the mountain alone. You only need to show me the way. Xian Yuan was stunned and asked worriedly, Miss Yun, the forbidden area at the back of the mountain is too dangerous. If you go alone, I won't be at ease. In any case, Yun Luofeng had helped him and had even unearthed the murderer who had killed his beloved. How could he just watch as Yun Luofeng charged into a land of death? It's useless for you to go. You'll only drag me down, Yun Luofeng said calmly. So, I can go alone. Both Great Elder and the Queen breathed a sigh of relief at Yun Luofeng's words. They did not want Xian Yuan to be involved in this matter. Otherwise, if this country chose another king, it would take a lot of time. Miss Yun, you can't enter the forbidden area at the back of the mountain. I will send a guard to escort you to the forbidden area. Great Elder smiled. His tone was not as dissatisfied as before. Instead, it was polite. Yun Luofeng did not speak. To be honest, she did not have a good impression of the people in this place except for Xian Yuan. As for the risk of going to the forbidden area at the back of the mountain, she was just doing it for herself. After the guard left with Yun Luofeng, the Great Elder looked away and turned to Xian Yuan. King, come with me, he said calmly. Xian Yuan nodded and followed the Great Elder into the Elder's room. At this moment, no one noticed that the Queen, who had been standing beside Xian Yuan, had disappeared. Inside the Elder's room, Xian Yuan was a little uneasy, not knowing why the Great Elder was looking for him. The Great Elder and the other elders looked at each other before looking at Xian Yuan and sighing. King, we've been hiding something from you. It's a legacy left behind by our ancestors. Legacy? Xian Yuan was stunned and asked, What legacy? The Great Elder pondered for a moment. The legacy left behind by our ancestors is that in the future, whoever can lead us out of this place will be a god sent by the heavens to save us. Otherwise, why do you think I've made you all revere the gods for so many years? Great Elder, you mean? Xian Yuan looked up at the Great Elder in shock. If Yun Luofeng really finds a way to leave the forbidden area, she will be the person sent by the gods to save us? Chapter 1553. The Great Elder shook his head and sighed helplessly. Let's not talk about whether she can help us. Just the fact that she's so disrespectful to the deities proves that she's not someone sent by the deities. Xian Yuan clenched his fists. He glanced at the window in front of him with worry in his eyes. He naturally hoped that Yun Luofeng was the person that the Great Elder had mentioned. That way, her life could be saved. In the bedchamber, the gentle and beautiful woman was somewhat restless. Her eyes were filled with worry. At this moment, a palace maid hurried in and knelt in front of the gentle and beautiful woman. She reported respectfully, Your Majesty, I overheard the conversation between the Great Elder and the Empress. Then, the palace maid reported the contents of the conversation without missing a word. The Empress lowered her eyes and muttered to herself. After a long while, she raised her beautiful eyes and her lips curled into a cold smile. The person sent by the deities can allow the people of our country to leave this wretched place? Furthermore, if someone can lead the people out, they must be worshipped like a deity? Your Majesty, that is indeed what the great elder said. The palace maid lowered her head and her voice was very respectful. The Empress turned her beautiful eyes slightly. There was a vicious light in her gloomy eyes. She did not know why, but she had a feeling that Yun Luofeng's arrival was fated. Perhaps she could really lead the people out of here? No, I can't sit here and wait for death. The position of the Empress must belong to me. The most respected woman must also be me. Only then could she stand by the Empress' side and stand shoulder to shoulder with the Empress. It would be fine if Yun Luofeng died. If she succeeded and the great elder asked her to give up the position of Empress in order to rope her in, how could she refuse? In order to keep this position and for the Empress, she had to do something. At this moment, the Empress threw Lin Yoyu's dying words to the back of her mind. She only knew that Yun Luofeng must die. Your Majesty! The palace maid was stunned. She gathered her courage and said, Yun Luofeng has already gone to the forbidden area at the back of the mountain. Without the great elder's orders, we can't go there. It's all right. The Empress smiled sinisterly. I have my ways to enter the back of the mountain. In the past, the Empress would never have risked her life. But now, for the Empress, she could not care so much. Little Chun, I'm going to the back of the mountain now. If the king comes looking for me, you must stop him. Yes, Queen. Palace maid Xiao Chun lowered her head again and said respectfully. After the queen gave the order, she quickly walked out and hurried towards the back of the mountain. At this moment, on the back of the mountain, 2 guards saw the queen walking over quickly and hurriedly blocked her way with their swords. They said expressionlessly, Queen, without the great elder's orders, no one is allowed to enter the back of the mountain. The queen's face turned cold as she shouted, How dare you? I am here under the great elder's orders. Get out of my way. Empress, please forgive me for not being able to comply. Unless you take out the great elder's token, you will not be able to enter the back of the mountain. The queen sneered, The great elder only has 1 token, and he has already given it to Lady Yun. Where do you expect me to get another token for you? The 2 guards fell silent for a moment and looked at each other, clearly doubting the veracity of the queen's words. The queen's eyes darkened. To be honest, I have come because the great elder regrets his decision to order me to bring Lady Yun away. If Lady Yun loses her life in the back of the mountain because of your obstruction, will you be able to bear the consequences? Chapter 1554. The 2 guards looked at each other and asked, Please wait for a moment, Your Majesty. We'll inform the head elder. If the head elder allows it, we'll let you in. The Empress knitted her willowy brows again when she heard the guard's words, and the impatience in her eyes deepened. All right, I'll wait for you here. Unfortunately, by the time you've reported back, Miss Yun would have been long gone. By then, if the head elder blames you, you'll have to bear the responsibility. The Empress fiercely flung her sleeves and berated them sternly. The 2 guards trembled when they heard this. In the end, they gritted their teeth and said, Your Majesty, you'd better go and come back quickly. Once they had spoken, the 2 of them separated and made way for the Empress. The Empress scoffed icily and strode in. The moment she entered the back of the mountain, the corners of her lips curled into a smile as if her scheme had succeeded. In the back of the mountain, the young girl paused in front of a cave. She could faintly sense a powerful aura coming from the cave, and there was even the sound of a dragon's roar. If I'm not wrong, this cave is the forbidden area. Yun Luofeng fell silent for a moment before she slowly walked into the cave. The moment she stepped into the cave, a wave of heat rushed towards her, almost pushing her out of the cave. Master, I sense a very powerful force in this cave. The puppet's body has yet to recover and it won't be able to withstand more than a few attacks. You must be careful. Yun Luofeng gently stroked the jade pendant on her neck as her lips curled into a smile. All right. In reality, this jade pendant of hers could withstand 1 fatal attack. Otherwise, she would not have taken the risk to come here. As she ventured deeper, Yun Luofeng felt the wave of heat become more and more intense. It was as if it was going to roast her into ashes. Very soon, Yun Luofeng stopped and turned her gaze towards the front. Her eyes were filled with shock and bewilderment. In a large, deep pit, an icy blue water dragon was bound in the pit by a thick metal chain. Its body was transparent and it let out a sorrowful roar. It was surrounded by bright red flames. The temperature of the flames was scorching, and the water dragon was in extreme pain. Logically speaking, water subdued fire. However, this fire was not extinguished by the water dragon. The scorching heat seeped into one's soul. Even standing in front of the deep pit, one could feel one's soul trembling. "Master, be careful." Little Mo's nervous voice rang out when he saw the huge wave rushing towards him. Yun Luofeng came back to his senses and dodged to the side. At this moment, her back was drenched in cold sweat. If she was touched by this huge wave, she would definitely be scared out of her wits. There was no way to save him. "Master, this flame is very fierce. It's the reincarnation flame that can never be extinguished. Even if you're just touched by a spark, you'll die. However, this water dragon's soul has stayed in the flames for so long, yet it hasn't been extinguished. That's quite surprising." "Tisk." As soon as little Mo finished speaking, Bai Xiao sneered, "Can't you see that? The reason why the water dragon's soul hasn't been extinguished after staying in the spirit flame for so long is not only because of its own abilities, but also because it has devoured many souls and is using these souls to restore its own soul." Bai Xiao was the tree of life. During this period of time, she had not done anything in the temple, but now she could not help but interrupt. Chapter 1555. "Master, all these years, the reason why those who have come here have been unable to return is because they have become nutrients for the water dragon. Therefore, in order to avoid suffering the same fate, we should leave first." Yun Luofeng fell silent. She had a feeling that the opportunity to leave this place lay beneath the water dragon. However, ignoring the ferocious fire of reincarnation, just this water dragon alone was not something she could fight against. "Master, be careful." Suddenly, little Mo's anxious voice rang out from within her soul. Yun Luofeng instantly raised her head and saw that the water dragon was already staring at her with its ferocious eyes. Its slightly opened mouth emitted a powerful suction force. That suction force was like a hand that was forcefully dragging her soul out. As for the water dragon's open mouth, it was like an endless black hole that one could not see the bottom of. Yun Luofeng clenched her fists tightly. She felt as if a huge mountain was pressing down on her body. She could not move and could only stare helplessly at the water dragon's gaping mouth. "Yun Luofeng, I've finally found you." However, at that moment, a cold laugh rang out from behind her. Yun Luofeng turned her head forcefully and saw that the Empress had appeared behind her without her knowing. Her slender, jade-like hands pushed Yun Luofeng fiercely, pushing her into the raging sea of flames. At that moment, Yun Luofeng no longer had the time to think about why she had not sensed the Empress at all when she had appeared here. She also could not think about why the Empress could come to this back mountain. She only knew that there were endless dangers waiting for her below. The jade tablet on her neck split in half. The rope also broke and fell into the flames. When the water dragon saw that its food had fallen, it did not care about the arrogant and smug Empress who was standing in front of the deep pit. It used its tail to wrap around Yun Luofeng's body, its ice-blue eyes filled with greed. The 7 continents. In a remote town, a couple was sitting in an inn, resting. Between the two of them, the man was dressed in embroidered robes and looked cultured and elegant. The woman, on the other hand, was valiant and elegant. Her hair was tied up with a red ribbon and her red robes fluttered gently in the breeze. Suddenly, the woman in red's face paled and she stood up with a thud. "What happened?" The man was startled. His gentle eyes gazed at the woman in red as he asked. The woman in red clenched her fists tightly. "Do you still remember the jade token I gave Fonga when we first met?" She took a deep breath. "I've been carrying this jade token with me since I was young. I've always had a strong feeling about its existence. Back then, I gave Fong, or the jade token not only to save her life, but also to let me know if she's still alive. The man's heart suddenly trembled, and he also quickly stood up, eyebrows and eyes filled with worry. You mean, I can sense that the jade pendant has shattered. There was probably no one who didn't know what it meant when the jade token shattered. In other words, Yun Luofeng had already encountered a fatal crisis. I'm going to find Feng and Xiao. The woman in red's eyes were domineering and her voice was filled with killing intent. If I find out who dares to touch my daughter-in-law, I will make them suffer a fate worse than hell. At the same time, Grandpa Jun, who was in the middle of disciplining his own disciple, seemed to have felt something. With a poochie sound, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 1556. Master? Jun Xian's expression changed greatly, and he hurriedly held onto his father. He was so worried that he was about to cry. Master, it's all my fault. I actually made you so angry that you vomited blood. Disciple promises that I will listen to Master in everything from now on. I will never make you angry again. The pitiful Jun Xian thought that he had angered Grandpa Jun, causing him to vomit 3 liters of blood. However, Grandpa Jun's face was pale and filled with grief. Little Yun, something really happened this time. What? Jun Xian widened his eyes in shock and looked at Grandpa Jun. Impossible. You gave her the soul jade plate. If she is in danger, she can just tear the soul jade plate and you will be able to save her. She hasn't even touched the soul jade plate. How could she be in danger? Grandpa Jun shook his head sorrowfully. If that Yun lass really did tear up the jade pendant, it proves that the danger she faced can still be resolved. Since she didn't even touch the jade tablet, it proves that even if I appeared, I wouldn't be able to save her. Based on this girl's character, how could she possibly drag down another person before she dies? Other than the Jun family jade plate that Jun Fengling had given her, Yun Luofeng also had the soul jade plate that Grandpa Jun had given her before she left. It was also because of this soul jade tablet that Grandpa Jun could clearly sense that Yun Luofeng was in mortal danger. Perhaps she no longer existed in this world. 2 streams of tears flowed down from the corners of Grandpa Jun's eyes. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have allowed her to go to the hidden God Mountain. In a corner of the Jun family's courtyard, Jun Linger hid her body behind the wall. Perhaps it was because Grandpa Jun was in a state of grief that he did not realize that Jun Linger had heard his words. At this moment, Jun Linger's body was trembling uncontrollably. Unknowingly, tears were streaming down her cheeks. Sister Yun is dead? The big sister Yun who had protected Chao Yuaqin while she was strutting around was already dead? Impossible. How could such a powerful and domineering big sister Yun die? Grandpa must be lying? Jun Linger bit her lip and turned to walk out of the Jun residence. She had only taken a few steps when a hand grabbed her from behind. Ling, where are you going? Jun Linger's body trembled. With her back facing the man behind her, her slightly lowered eyes flashed with determination. Cousin, I'm just going out to relax. Relax? I think you're planning to go to the hidden God Mountain to relax, right? Hua Yifei stared straight at Jun Linger. Under his gaze, Jun Linger had nowhere to hide. Cousin, I'm just going to verify if Big Sister Yun is really dead. No, it's too dangerous there, you can't go. Hua Yifei tightly grabbed Jun Linger's hand and said. Jun Linger's expression was very sorrowful, and her frail body looked very pitiful. Even so, her spirited voice was still filled with determination. Back then, when Chao Yuaqin bullied me, she stood up for me. Even my father only advised me to be patient. But she wasn't afraid of the Jun family. She taught Chao Yuaqin a lesson on my behalf. Cousin, in this world, other than grandfather, only you and her can disregard everything and stand by my side. Even my father can't do this. Jun Linger had no intention of blaming Jun Xian. After all, Jun Xian was the head of the Jun family. He had to consider many things. She just wanted to say that no matter what, she had to go to the hidden God Mountain. Linka. Chapter 1557. Hua Yifei's heart tightened, but at this moment, Jun Linger suddenly turned her head and kissed his lips. This sudden action caused Hua Yifei's body to stiffen. Then, a wave of dizziness came over him, causing his body to stagger a few times. Ling, bang. Before Hua Yifei could finish his words, he fell to the ground head first and lost all consciousness. Cousin, I'm sorry, I must go to the hidden god mountain. She wiped the corner of her mouth, turned around and walked out, not even looking back at Hua Yifei. She was afraid that if she looked at him one more time, she would not be able to bear to leave. Young master, young master. A passing servant saw the unconscious Hua Yifei on the ground and shouted anxiously, "Someone come quickly, young master has fainted." At this moment, Grandpa Jun was still grieving. When he heard the servant's words, he did not have time to recover from his pain and quickly walked towards the front yard. "Master, what happened to Yifei?" Jun Xian frowned. Indeed, before one wave had subsided, Hua Yifei had suddenly fainted before Yun Luofeng's life or death was even known. That's right, where is Linga? In the past, if Jun Linger had heard that Hua Yifei had fainted, she would have rushed over immediately. Why was there no sign of her now? Grandpa Jun had already straightened his back. He waved his hand and had people carry Hua Yifei back to his room to rest. "You don't need to look for Linga." This sentence was directed at Jun Xian. "Master?" Jun Xian looked at Grandpa Jun in surprise. What did Master mean by this? Yifei fainted because he was drugged, and this drugging was done by Linga. What? Jun Xian was shocked. Linga and Hua Yifei were childhood sweethearts. They loved each other. Why would she poison him? Grandpa Jun smiled bitterly and shook his head. "If I'm not wrong, Linga must have heard our conversation and found out about Yun Luofeng's accidental death. She must have gone to the hidden god mountain." At this moment, Jun Xian's expression changed. He hurriedly ordered, "Men, go and bring the young miss back immediately." Grandpa Jun did not stop Jun Xian's actions. At his age, he could no longer bear the pain of losing any more family members. "Xian, you will continue to manage the Jun family. I will be leaving for a while." "Master, where are you going?" "If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse. Even if the Yun girl is already dead, I will still bring her corpse back from the hidden god mountain and let her rest in peace." The old man took a deep breath, suppressing the pain in his heart, and slowly said, "Mas." Jun Xian was so scared that he hugged the old man and said nervously, "You can't go. The Jun family can't live without you, and I don't want to lose you." Grandpa Jun sighed and slowly raised his hand. From the looks of it, he wanted to stroke Jun Xian's head. Don't judge Jun Xian by how awe-inspiring he was in the Jun family. In front of his master, he was always like a child. So, Grandfather Jun's actions were not surprising, master? Jun Xian's eyes were filled with tears. He raised his head and waited for his master's caress. Jun Xian did not wait for his master's caress. What he waited for was a muffled thud. Grandpa Jun's hand had already landed heavily on his head. At that moment, Jun Xian felt stars before his eyes. He became dizzy and his body fell backwards. Before he fainted, Jun Xian only said one sentence, "Master, you are so cruel." Chapter 1558. Grandpa Jun glanced at Jun Xian, who was lying on the ground, then turned to the Jun family. "Carry him away. He'll wake up on his own in less than half a day." "Yes, old master." The Jun family members responded, but their mouths were twitching. They finally understood where the young miss had learned her personality from. As expected of the people brought up by the old master, they were all so unreasonable. First, the young miss knocked out Hua Yifei. Then, the old master directly knocked out the old master with a single slap. Grandpa Jun slowly turned around and walked out the door, hidden divine mountain. The forbidden area at the back of the mountain. Inside the huge pit, there was a sea of flames that was incomparably bright red. She slowly opened her eyes and looked at her palm. A look of surprise flashed across her evil eyes. "Am I not dead yet?" When she came back to her senses, she found herself in a protective circle. No flames could touch her. "Master, this is the effect of the jade tablet that Jun Fengling gave you. However, this layer of protection can only last for a short period of time. During this period of time, all attacks will be useless against you. Once this period of time is over, you will no longer be able to do anything." At the beginning, Yun Luofeng had thought that the jade tablet could only block one attack for her, but she didn't know how to block it. Only now did she understand that there was a seal set up within the jade tablet. Once she encountered danger, the seal would automatically release itself, and a protective layer would appear to protect her. Xiao Mo, Bai Xiao, do you have any way to let me temporarily ignore the fire of reincarnation? Yun Luofeng asked after thinking for a while. As long as I can ignore the fire of reincarnation, I'll have a chance to deal with this water dragon. Outside the protective barrier, the water dragon glared at Yun Luofeng. Its eyes were filled with savagery, greed, and anger. The food that was already in their hands flew away just like that. No matter who it was, they would feel unhappy. Master, Bai Zhao's clear voice came slowly. My tree of life can protect you and allow you to ignore the fire of reincarnation for 15 minutes. However, you must remember that you only have 15 minutes. If you exceed this time, even I won't be able to help you. 15 minutes? Yun Luofeng nodded slightly. 15 minutes is enough. At this point, the layer of barrier that was protecting her gradually faded, as if it would disappear at any time. The water dragon's eyes were filled with excitement because it could already sense that this human girl's soul was about to become its food. But the protective barrier suddenly burst like a bubble. At the same time, a faint green light surrounded Yun Luofeng, dispersing the flames that wanted to devour her. A cool feeling spread throughout her body, making her feel comfortable. Even though the water dragon was surprised that the world annihilation flame had retreated, it did not hesitate and charged at Yun Luofeng. The gigantic dragon tail slammed into Yun Luofeng's body, sending her flying. She coughed up a mouthful of blood, causing her face to pale. Yun Luofeng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at the giant dragon with vigilance and determination. You're just the soul of a giant dragon. I don't believe that I can't subdue you. The water dragon sensed Yun Luofeng's provocation and became even angrier. The chains on its body rattled as it shook, its eyes filled with anger. Chapter 1559. The water dragon roared angrily and swung its tail at Yun Luofeng, as if it wanted to kill the woman in front of it in one blow. Bang! Yun Luofeng took a few steps back and slammed heavily into the rock wall. She lifted her head and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, a mocking smile in her eyes. Again! Her steps were very fast. In an instant, she was in front of the water dragon. She grabbed the two dragon horns on its head tightly with both hands and suddenly climbed up. Roar! The water dragon was even more furious. It opened its mouth and spat out dragon breath, but Yun Luofeng had already climbed up its head. The dragon breath could only hit the wall and be swallowed by the flames. If you were still alive, perhaps I would fear you. Now you're just a spirit. At first, the water dragon did not think much of the woman in white. It desperately shook its head, trying to shake the woman off its head. But then, the woman did something that made it so angry that it wanted to split apart. The woman lay on the water dragon's head to maintain her balance. Then, she opened her mouth and bit down on the water dragon's head. With a ripping sound, she tore out a piece of the dragon's soul and chewed it slowly in her mouth. Roar! The intense pain caused the water dragon's entire body to tremble. It could not help but howl. Its entire body contorted in pain, and its movements to shake Yun Luofeng became more and more violent. But the woman was still holding on tightly to the dragon's horns and gnawing on the water dragon's soul. You want to devour my soul, so I'll devour yours first. Rip. Another wave of intense pain. The water dragon no longer had its usual domineering cruelty. Its eyes were pleading as it whimpered. It seemed to be begging for mercy, hoping that Yun Luofeng would let it go. Let you go? Yun Luofeng laughed coldly. If I were the one who lost, would you let me go? If she failed, she could only be devoured by the water dragon. Since that was the case, she might as well devour the water dragon's soul first. Roar! The water dragon slammed its body against the rock wall in pain. Its cries became even more furious and pained. If Yun Luofeng had not climbed up its head, it would definitely have torn this woman into 1,000 pieces. Yun Luofeng also sensed the killing intent in the water dragon's heart, and his gnawing became more and more violent. Gradually, the water dragon withered and didn't resist as fiercely as before. Its soul was very weak, so weak that it could disappear at any moment. Seeing that the water dragon no longer had the ability to resist, Yun Luofeng summoned the gold-seeking rats. In an instant, the rats surrounded the water dragon and used their sharp teeth to crush its soul, eating it with relish. Not long after, the entire water dragon was digested in the stomachs of Yun Luofeng and the rats. When Yun Luofeng put the rats back into the divine grimoire space, he suddenly felt as if there was a force fiercely pounding against his body. "Master, quick, sit down and suppress the power of this water dragon. Otherwise, you might explode and die." Little Mo's anxious voice could be heard. This time, Yun Luofeng had indeed been too impulsive. She wasn't a gold-seeking rat and couldn't directly digest the water dragon's soul. If she didn't handle it properly, the power contained in the soul would explode in her body. Yun Luofeng didn't think any further and hurriedly sat down cross-legged. She couldn't care less about the samsara fire around her, she just wanted to quickly suppress the power in her body. Chapter 1560. Oh no! Bai Zhao's heart sank. Her power couldn't last long. If Yun Luofeng didn't leave, the fire of reincarnation would turn her into ashes in an instant. However, it was too late for her to leave the deep pit, and the soul power in her body would make her explode and die. Hearing Bai Zhao's words, she felt that the fire of reincarnation around Yun Luofeng had begun to stir. After a while, when the green light circle around Yun Luofeng disappeared, the fire of reincarnation rushed up and drowned her in the deep pit. Compared with Bai Zhao and the others who were shocked, Xiaomo was much calmer, but his big bright eyes were still filled with nervousness and worry. If it were my previous master, she would have been turned into ashes by the fire of reincarnation immediately. But don't forget that the water dragon has lived here for so many years without dying, which proves how powerful his soul power is. So my master, who has devoured the water dragon's soul, won't be annihilated so easily. Xiaomo clenched his fists tightly, a contemplative look in his eyes. I asked my master to stay here and absorb the water dragon's soul because the fire of reincarnation will suppress the water dragon's power. If my master can withstand it, her strength will be improved to a higher level, but if she can't, Xiaomo's heart trembled and his face became resolute. No, my master will definitely survive. At the foot of the back mountain, the queen hurriedly ran down. Seeing Shen Yuan who led the guards here, her heart trembled and her face turned pale. Your Majesty, Shen Yuan rushed up aggressively, slapped the queen on the cheek, and angrily shouted, "Who allowed you to step into the back mountain?" The queen bit her lips, her eyes brimming with tears. She covered her face with her hands, and her eyes were full of grief. This was the first time that the king had hit her. It was just because of Yun Luofeng. Fortunately, that woman was dead, and no one would come to steal her man. Thinking of this, the queen lowered her eyes, and there was a gloomy and ferocious look in her eyes. Come on, tie the queen up and send her to the elder's office for punishment. Shen Yuan coldly glanced at the queen, fiercely flicked his sleeves, and turned away. The elder's office. The atmosphere was solemn and stern. The great elder looked at the queen who was tied up and slowly asked, "Queen, do you not intend to give this old man an explanation?" The queen bit her lip. "First elder, I was worried about Miss Yun's safety and wanted to stop her. But I couldn't find her, so I came back." Although First Elder would not abolish her position as Empress for Yun Luofeng, but the king would definitely be dissatisfied with her because of this and would not even look at her in the future. Therefore, she could never admit to what she had done. "Queen, even if you didn't do anything wrong, you have to be punished for going to the back of the mountain without permission." The great elder's tone was stern, and his eyes were cold and solemn. "Men, lock up the queen and let her reflect on her mistakes for 3 months." "Yes, Grand Elder." The 2 guards stepped forward and made an inviting gesture to the queen. "Your Majesty, please." The queen smiled miserably, her sorrowful eyes staring at Shen Yuan. Her eyes were filled with sorrow. "Your Majesty, no matter what I did it for you, but you hurt me every time." Shen Yuan paused and looked up at the queen's pitiful eyes. Although he had no feelings for this woman, he felt guilty at this moment. Chapter 1561. Empress, you shouldn't have gone to the back of the mountain. Shen Yuan shook his head and sighed helplessly. Empress, I know you value Lady Yun very much. That's why I decided to risk my life to persuade her to come back. If I break the rules because of this, I am willing to accept the punishment. After the Empress said this, she did not look at Xianyuan again. Her expression was like a warrior rushing to the battlefield, determined and without regret. Xianyuan felt even more apologetic. He originally thought that the Empress suddenly went to the back of the mountain to deal with Yun Luofeng. He did not expect that in the end he had misunderstood her. Thinking of how angry he was just now, Xianyuan's face was full of guilt. The woman he loved had been gone for many years. As her sister, the Empress not only did he not take good care of her, but he also treated her coldly. Therefore, at this moment, Xianyuan decided that he would definitely change his attitude towards the Empress in the future. There were not many women as kind as her anymore. Empress, the great elder sighed and said sincerely, this time, the Empress did break the rules. That's why I punished her. However, you can also see what the Empress has done for you. I hope you will treat her well in the future. Yes, great elder. Xianyuan's expression was respectful, but his eyes glanced in the direction the Empress left. After a moment of silence, he ordered, servants, I will be staying at the Empress residence today. Arrange it immediately. In the 2 years since he married the Empress, they had always lived separately. Until now, the Empress' actions had changed him. He finally understood that he should cherish the people in front of him and not wait until he lost them to regret. The huge pit was like the mouth of a giant beast. The rolling flames could instantly devour people and annihilate them. At this moment, within the flames, Yun Luofeng sat cross-legged. Her tightly furrowed brows revealed her pain. What was the combination of ice and fire? No one felt it more than Yun Luofeng. The left side of her body was shrouded in flames, while the right side turned into blue water. However, the feeling that this water gave her was not clear, but cold. Yes, it was cold. It was as if the cold of the 12th lunar month made her body shiver. But the left side was like a sea of flames. The intense pain spread through her soul and did not dissipate. Boom! Suddenly, the blue water turned into a water dragon and fought fiercely with the beast formed by the flames in the deep pit. The water dragon and the ferocious beast were equally matched, and the battle was even more intense. Previously, the water dragon's body had been bound by the metal chains, causing it to be unable to unleash its full strength. Only now did Yun Luofeng realize how powerful this water dragon was. If it was still alive, wouldn't it be invincible in the continent? But, no matter how strong the water dragon was, it was no match for a beast made of flames. Even if water countered fire, it was still at a disadvantage in the battle. If the fire dragon and water dragon remained in balance within Yun Luofeng's body, then perhaps this crisis would be resolved. Once one side gained the upper hand, the one with the upper hand would defeat the opponent and swallow Yun Luofeng. Other than fire, everyone else, pass your power to me. Yun Luofeng steeled his heart and ordered. The reason why Huohuo was removed was because Huohuo was a fire-type spiritual beast. Not only would she not be able to help her, she would even increase the power of the reincarnation flame. Chapter 1562. Yes, Master. In an instant, a powerful force was transmitted from her soul. Yun Luofeng hurriedly gathered all the power and transferred it to the water dragon's body. The water dragon let out an angry roar and its strength rapidly increased. It was originally at a disadvantage, but now it was on par with the beast. Withdraw. Yun Luofeng shouted softly. The water dragon and the beast instantly disappeared and were absorbed into her body. Through her divine sense, she could see that there were 2 spots of light, one red and one blue, occupying the left and right sides of her soul. These 2 spots of light were eyeing her like a tiger watching its prey, waiting for the moment the opponent's strength weakened to defeat it in one fell swoop. Perhaps it was because Yun Luofeng had tamed the flaming beast, the surrounding flames quickly retreated to the side, opening up a path for her. Master, I don't know if your encounter this time is a blessing or a curse. Little Mo's voice was filled with helplessness. Although we helped the water dragon just now, we can only help for a while, not forever. If the water dragon is defeated by the reincarnation flame, your soul will immediately turn into ashes. Yun Luofeng pondered for a moment and asked, What's the solution? Find a water attribute item that can increase the water dragon's strength. Let them reside in your body at the same time, and they will maintain a state of balance for a period of time. As a human, Yun Luofeng could not digest the water dragon, so she could only use the reincarnation flame to suppress it. Although a part of the water dragon had entered the gold-seeking rat's stomach, that bit of soul did not have much effect on the water dragon. Even so, the water dragon was not a match for the flaming beast. Boom. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder roared in the sky. Powerful spiritual energy swarmed into Yun Luofeng's body. Yun Luofeng hurriedly sat down cross-legged, allowing the wind to blow up her hair. Master, congratulations, you can finally break through to the Saint Lord level. On the 7 continents, only the Saint Lord had the right to stand above all living beings and look down on all heroes. At the same time, everyone in the country felt the shocking movement in the back mountain, and their gazes swept towards the back mountain. They saw a whirlpool spiraling in the sky above the back mountain. The whirlpool contained boundless power and a deep pressure that made those with lower strength unable to straighten their bodies. Back mountain. Xianyuan and the queen were watching intently. Compared with the urgency of the man beside her, the queen's eyes were filled with nervousness and worry. Why did this happen? How could there be someone breaking through in the deserted back mountain? Could it be Yun Luofeng? Impossible. Yun Luofeng was already dead. The person who had broken through was definitely not her. Just as the queen was filled with anxiety, the sound of footsteps came from behind her. Xianyuan turned his head and looked at the elders who had rushed over. He said respectfully, "Great Elder, you're here?" The Great Elder's voice was filled with excitement as he stared unblinkingly at the back mountain where the storm was coming from. Even his voice had changed subconsciously. After so many years in our kingdom, there is finally someone who has broken through to the Saint Realm. It is truly a cause for celebration. I wonder who it is that has broken through. Could there be an expert from our kingdom hidden in the back mountain? This was not impossible. He had placed a ban on the back of the mountain, but that did not mean that there were no living people in the back of the mountain. After all, the ban had been in place for more than a decade. More than a decade ago, there were still people who went to the back mountain. It was just that at that time, he was afraid of the dangers in the back mountain, so he didn't ask people to search for survivors. Chapter 1563. Therefore, someone must be hiding in the back of the mountain and had broken through to become a saint. The reason why they didn't link this to Yun Luofeng was because Yun Luofeng didn't reveal much of his abilities after arriving in this country. What kind of existence was a saint? How could a young lady like her break through to this realm? This was completely impossible. Just at this moment, a sudden powerful force sent chills down everyone's spines. When they looked up, they saw a black figure rushing towards them from the void. When he arrived in front of them, they finally saw the person in the void. This was an extremely handsome man. His cold eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. His hands were behind his back as he stood in the void. He was like a king, high above and looking down on all living beings. In this man's deep and cold eyes, it was as if no one could see their reflection. It was so cold that it pushed people thousands of miles away. The moment the Empress saw this man, her eyes were filled with amazement. She originally thought that the Empress was the most handsome man in the world. Her aura was unparalleled. However, compared to this cold man who looked like a king, Xianyuan was as insignificant as a speck of dust. If she hadn't fallen in love with the Empress and met this man first, she would have fallen in love with him without hesitation. However, her heart already belonged to Xianyuan. No matter how outstanding he was, he wouldn't be able to touch her heart. Thinking about this, the Empress subconsciously turned to look at the man next to her and stared at him in a daze. "Who are you?" The Great Elder's face darkened. This man wasn't from their country. Otherwise, it was impossible that he hadn't seen such a powerful person before. The man didn't say anything. He pursed his cold lips and stared at the place where the storm was coming from. His eyes that were originally filled with coldness were now filled with gentleness. "Are you the person who broke through in the back of the mountain?" The Great Elder frowned and asked. Because ever since this man appeared, the storm of breakthrough had gradually weakened. This proved that the person had already completed his breakthrough. But why was it that this man's eyes made it seem as if there was another person in that place? What puzzled the great elder even more was why such a mysterious man would appear out of nowhere in the back of their country's mountain. This young master. Xianxia frowned. Who are you, Scram? The man snorted coldly. His expression was no longer as gentle as before. Instead, it was cold and murderous. His black eyes glanced coldly at Xianxia, his face expressionless. King, he's too impudent. The queen stomped her foot angrily and raised her head to look at the cold man in the void. This place is our country's territory. An outsider like you has appeared here without even a word of explanation. Aren't you afraid that we'll kill you? The man's expression was cold, and he directly ignored the queen. Even looking at him was equivalent to insulting her own eyes. The queen's face was flushed with anger. Just as she was about to yell at him, she saw a little head on the man's shoulder. It was a dark green insect with a body as green as jade. It was so beautiful that it made people want to hold it in their hands and play with it. But this insect's eyes seemed to be filled with contempt. That's right, it was contempt. It was as if it was mocking the queen for overestimating herself. King, look at them. The queen clenched her fists angrily. Even a little bug dared to look down on her? Chapter 1564. Xianxia raised his hand to stop the queen as he stared vigilantly at the black-robed man in the sky. He did not know why, but this man gave him a vague sense of danger. It was as if he could destroy an entire country with just a lift of his hand. The man's cold and unfeeling gaze gradually turned into tenderness. He stared fixedly at the empty space in front of him as his cold, stiff lips unwittingly curled into a shallow smile. His smile was very faint, so faint that it was almost invisible. Even so, that faint smile was imprinted in everyone's eyes. It was nothing more than this to be able to captivate all living things. He really did not smile, but when he smiled, he stunned all living things. Everyone looked at the man's gaze, perhaps wanting to know why this cold and unfeeling man had undergone such a huge change. Just as everyone's attention was focused on him, a snow-white dress entered their line of sight. The woman's robes were whiter than snow and she was extremely beautiful. Her entire body was filled with an awe-inspiring evil aura, but it disappeared when she saw the man standing in the sky. Their eyes met, filled with indescribable tenderness and sweetness. The man opened his arms slightly and his black robes fluttered in the light breeze. His gaze was serious and warm as he stared at the woman in white not too far away, as if he wanted to carve her figure firmly into his mind. Suddenly, the woman ran wildly towards the man and quickly rushed into his arms. The man held the woman's slender waist tightly as they kissed passionately in the air. 3 years. This separation had been 3 years. During these 3 years, no one would know how he had spent his time. If he had not believed that Yun Luofeng was not dead, then he would definitely not have endured it. The queen's face was already pale with fright. Yun Luofeng was not dead? How was that possible? Furthermore, looking at the situation, Yun Luofeng and that black-robed man were a couple. Then what about all that she had done previously? If she had known that Yun Luofeng already had a lover, why would she have had to deal with her so painstakingly? The queen could not help but bite her lip as her body trembled gently. At this moment, everyone's gaze was on the man and woman in the air who were passionately kissing. Hence, no one noticed the queen's strange behavior. This girl's power seems to have undergone an earth-shattering change. A look of surprise flashed across the great elder's eyes. We've been wrong from the beginning. The person who has broken through here is this girl. In the beginning, the great elder had not been able to clearly see Yun Luofeng's strength, but at that time, had Yun Luofeng not made him feel some fear? However, this woman gave him an unfathomable feeling. Moreover, the aura that was faintly exuding from his body made him feel fearful. What did this mean? It meant that Yun Luofeng had reached the Saint Realm. I finally meet you. The man's voice was magnetic and hoarse, full of temptation as usual. Yun Xiao, I miss you. Her heartfelt words caused the man's expression to change subtly again. He hugged the woman in front of him tightly and kissed her passionately again. After a long time, he finally let go of the woman in his arms. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. his cold and expressionless face was like melting ice. The woman's figure was deeply reflected in his black eyes. "Mistress, I finally meet you. You're even more beautiful than I had imagined." Little Worm, who was lying on Yun Zhao's shoulder, shook his head and spoke to Yun Luofeng in an ingratiating manner. Chapter 1565. What a joke, this was its mistress. If it didn't please her and she threw it away in a fit of anger, who would it cry to? Worm. Yun Luofeng finally noticed the little fellow on the man's shoulder and raised his brows. Little Worm was a little dissatisfied, but it didn't dare to show it. It could only defend itself with all its might. "I'm not a worm, I'm a dragon." "A dragon?" Yun Luofeng stroked his chin and smiled at Little Worm. "Yun Xiao, I'm hungry." Her sinister and cunning expression made Little Worm tremble all over. It couldn't help but take a few steps back, its two claws clutching its chest tightly. It didn't taste good at all. "Master." So, the terrified Little Worm turned to look at Yun Xiao and complained pitifully, "Mistress wants to eat your pet." Yun Xiao ignored Little Worm and looked seriously at Yun Luofeng. "Do you like steamed or braised?" "Patter." Little Worm heard the sound of its heart breaking and its entire body turned to stone, as if it couldn't believe its own ears. Sob sob, can Master be so unscrupulous? Mistress wants to eat it and Master has to give it away? What a pity that it hadn't seen enough of this world before it was tricked by this heartless couple. At this moment, Little Worm had never regretted as much as it did now. If it had another chance, it would rather be sealed for millions of years than leave that place with Yun Xiao. Yun Luofeng smiled. Her smile was very beautiful, so beautiful that it moved one's heart. "I think worm meat isn't good for nourishment. I'm a dragon, a dragon." No matter how worried Little Worm was about becoming Yun Luofeng's food at this moment, for the sake of its dignity as a dragon, it still decided to stand up for its own reputation. "Yun Xiao, has this little fellow come up with a name?" Yun Luofeng continued to ask Yun Xiao as if he hadn't heard what it said. In Yun Xiao's heart, only Yun Luofeng was worthy of his attention. Asking him to give a worm, no, give a dragon a name? Not even in his next life. Then in the future. Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes. "Call it Little Worm." "No!" Despair appeared in the depths of Little Worm's eyes. It looked at Yun Xiao in agony. "Master, I'm your pet. You're so powerful and noble, you can't possibly let your pet have such a retarded name. Otherwise, it would be a disgrace to you. Furthermore, I'm not a worm, I'm a dragon." Yun Xiao glanced at him coldly and turned to Yun Luofeng. "All right." At this moment, Little Worm felt like his worldview had been shattered. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. It also understood that Yun Xiao would listen to Yun Luofeng no matter what. Even if Yun Luofeng asked him to jump off a cliff, he would jump down without hesitation. But why did it meet such a lovesick master? It was fine that he was infatuated with love, but why should he be the one suffering? Little Worm wiped away his tears, his eyes filled with despair towards this world. "Yun Xiao, why are you here?" Yun Luofeng seemed to have thought of something and asked. Yun Xiao answered seriously, "I chased the remnants of the Poison Valley here and accidentally stepped into the place where the little worm was sealed. Unexpectedly, even I myself was sealed. I spent almost 3 years before I was able to undo this seal and collect a spoil of war along the way." Yun Luofeng was silent for a moment before he raised his head to look at the man's handsome and cold face. Chapter 1566. Logically speaking, we should have been trapped in this place and unable to leave this country. But just now, I've already removed the seal on this country. We can also leave this place. This seal was the water dragon. Now that the water dragon had disappeared, the seal had also been removed. What? Her voice was neither loud nor soft, and it fell right into the crowd. Hearing this, the great elder could not contain his excitement. "What did you just say? The seal on our country has been removed?" "That's right." Yun Luofeng's gaze swept across the crowd. "The seal has been removed, but whether you can leave the hidden God Mountain will depend on your own abilities. Also, before we leave, I have one more thing to settle." As she spoke, her gaze slowly fell upon the Empress. An evil smile appeared on her lips, making her look especially sinister. The Empress' face was as white as snow, without any color. When she met the woman's eerie eyes, she retreated a few steps again, her lips trembling slightly. Boom! A wave of spiritual energy swept over and sent the Empress' body flying. With a loud bang, she crashed into the back of the crowd. The crowd was stunned. Perhaps they did not understand why Yun Luofeng would attack the Empress? Empress. The great elder paled in shock. He looked at Yun Luofeng in confusion. Miss Yun, what are you doing? The Empress went to the back of the mountain to find you because she did not want you to take any risks. She wanted to drag you back. Yun Luofeng chuckled. Her slightly raised eyes were filled with dominance and insolence. You did not want me to take any risks. Are you sure? In an instant, everyone's gazes gathered on the Empress once again. Their eyes were filled with suspicion. Could it be that the Empress had done something out of line to Yun Luofeng? I, Yun Luofeng, am able to stand at the peak with my own abilities. Why should I spy on a mere Empress? I don't even care about the throne, much less the Empress. Her voice was extremely arrogant. Like a meteorite, it struck everyone's hearts. However, you thought that I wanted to snatch your position and did not hesitate to push me into the abyss. If not for my better luck, I'm afraid I would have been annihilated in the abyss. Xianyuan's body froze. He slowly turned his head, his gray eyes filled with anger and disbelief. Queen, can you give me an explanation? No, it's not like that. She's lying. King, you have to believe me. I love you so much. How could I do such a thing that harms others and myself? The queen knelt and crawled toward Xianyuan. She hugged his legs tightly and wept as she said. Xianyuan closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his eyes were filled with pain. Why are you still lying at a time like this? Miss Yun has no enmity with you, so why would she frame you? The queen fell silent. If Yun Xiao had not appeared, she would have definitely accused Yun Luofeng of wanting to frame him because he had taken a fancy to Xianyuan. Now, this black-robed man was so outstanding. How could the other party give up on such an outstanding man to steal Xianyuan? Seeing that the queen did not speak, Xianyuan sneered and used his hands to push her arms away from his legs. His eyes were filled with disappointment. He had thought that the queen was kind-hearted and had given up everything for him. That was why he had taken care of her during this period of time. But who knew that in the end he was actually deceived by her? Chapter 1567. Hee. The queen took 2 steps back and smiled pitifully. Tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes as she spoke in a self-deprecating manner. Queen, you, me, and my sister, the 3 of us grew up together. From then on, I fell in love with you, but you only had eyes for my sister. My looks were not as good as hers, nor was my strength. After you became queen, the elders decided to make her the empress. Do you know how jealous I was at that time? Xianyuan looked at the queen coldly. So, you murdered her? The queen's expression froze and panic flashed across her eyes. Seeing her expression suddenly change, the anger in Xianyuan's heart began to burn. Did you really murder her? Actually, Xianyuan was just testing the queen. If it was in the past, he would never have suspected the queen. Now that the queen's true colors had been exposed, he began to have doubts, but the queen's expression had proven everything. Boom! Xianyuan was furious. He grabbed the queen's neck with all his might. His eyes were bloodshot as he roared angrily. She is your sister. Both of you grew up without parents. She was the one who raised you. How could you bear to kill her? The queen's throat was choked by his large hand. She could not speak. Her face was red and filled with despair. She did not regret killing her sister. In order to become queen, she would rather kill everyone in the world than let anyone snatch him from her. However, what the queen had done to her had chilled her. The elders stood at the side and did not stop the queen. The queen had made a huge mistake and should be punished. Furthermore, they also understood that the queen would not really kill the queen. At most, he would cripple her. In their country, there was no precedent of the death penalty. As expected, after venting his anger, the queen let go of his hand. His palm was still trembling and his eyes were filled with hatred. Men, drag the queen away. Cripple her strength and expel her from the country. Yes, queen. Just as the two guards were about to step forward, a powerful force suddenly swooped down from the void and pierced through the queen's body. The queen's body froze. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Blood spread from her chest. She trembled and her body fell. Queen. Everyone was shocked and looked up at the black-robed man standing in the void. The man's black robes fluttered gently in the breeze. His right hand gently embraced the white-robed woman next to him. His paralyzed face remained expressionless and his expression was incomparably cold. Young master, Great Elder's expression was a little ugly. The queen has made a mistake, and we have decided to punish her. But isn't killing a little too much? The man lowered his eyes and looked down at the crowd below him. His cold eyes were filled with arrogance and a murderous aura emanated from him, causing everyone to shudder. Your kingdom's destined queen was killed, and you didn't avenge her. Even the man who loved her deeply didn't punish the murderer for her. The man's voice was as cold and deep as ever. But, if anyone touches a hair on my wife, I'll make them bleed on the spot. So what if they killed people? For her, he could slaughter the entire world, let alone a mere woman. Xian Yuan's body stiffened. He sighed softly and a bitter smile appeared on his handsome face. Chapter 1568. He had this man's boldness. Would the woman he loved not have died so early? Yun Xiao, let's go. Yun Luofeng smiled and looked at the man's side profile. Her voice was lazy. All right. Yun Xiao smiled at him. His arm wrapped around the woman's waist. He took a step and they were already 30 meters away. Wait a minute. Great Elder was anxious. However, before he could say anything, the two of them had already disappeared. Great Elder, this time, we can finally leave this damned place. Everyone's heart was filled with joy. Only Great Elder's face was filled with worry. The ancestor left a message. The person who can break the restriction is the person sent by the gods to us. Now that she has left, what should we do? Great Elder didn't know that the intention of the ancestor's message was to leave behind hope for the future generations. But the ancestor himself didn't expect that after so many years, a woman named Yun Luofeng would appear and break the restriction for this country. Hidden God Mountain. The grass was flourishing. A powerful aura spread throughout the entire mountain range. If it was someone with lower strength, they might immediately turn and flee in fright from this powerful aura. Needless to say, Yun Luofeng's luck was rather good. When she first came to Hidden God Mountain, she encountered the cave group. Now that she was planning to leave, she once again encountered a group of skeletons. Looking at the skeletons that were waving their bone clubs and rushing over, Yun Xiao expressionlessly ordered the little worm that was dozing off on his shoulder. Finish the battle quickly. The little worm responded and was planning to fight the skeletons. But at this moment Yun Luofeng stopped it. These skeletons have a grudge against me. Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a sinister smile. So, let me deal with them. She wouldn't forget that when she stepped into Hidden God Mountain, she was chased by this group of skeletons. Now that she had finally broken through to the Saint Realm, she must personally take revenge. What? When she finished speaking, Yun Luofeng had already rushed into the group of skeletons. She, who had once been chased by the skeletons, finally had the strength to deal with them at this moment. Even so, because these skeletons were indestructible and didn't know pain, even if Yun Luofeng broke through to the Saint Monarch realm, it would still be difficult for him to destroy this undying battle team. This won't do. If this goes on, I won't be able to hold on. Yun Luofeng raised his hand and took out a stalk of spirit medicine. He didn't chew it carefully before swallowing it. The physical strength and spirit power that he had originally consumed were gradually recovering. Not far away, Yun Xiao watched Yun Luofeng's battle with a calm expression. But he had already made his preparations. If Yun Luofeng couldn't defeat these skeletons, he would make a move. Little Mo, do you know why these dead people became the skeleton battle team? Yun Luofeng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and asked with his soul. Little Mo's voice came from his soul. I don't know the specifics, but did you see the green willow, the wisps in each skeleton's eyes? These will-o'-the-wisps are souls, but they are not the skeleton's souls. Not the skeleton's souls? Yun Luofeng's eyes flickered. She seemed to have understood something and hurriedly closed her eyes. The surrounding noise instantly dissipated, and it was as if she was the only one in the entire world. Chapter 1569. Suddenly, she opened her eyes, and a powerful force suddenly erupted when the skeletons had arrived in front of her. After that, countless dark green spirit flames floated into the eyes of the skeletons. At this moment, the skeletons had already stopped moving. In their eye sockets, two dark green flames were fighting endlessly. Everyone wanted to take control. Yun Luofeng did not relax. She had split her own spiritual power, and only her own spiritual power could control these skeletons. Of course, if Yun Luofeng had not swallowed the water dragon spirit and caused her own soul to grow, she would never have used such a risky method to control the skeletons. Finally, Yun Luofeng's spirit flames took control and swallowed the opponent's spirit flames. Her body softened, and the moment she fell into a warm embrace. Yun Xiao hugged the woman in his arms tightly as a sense of heartache flashed across his black eyes. Yun Xiao, I'm fine. Yun Luofeng curled the corners of her lips. She knew what Yun Xiao wanted to say, so before he could speak, she said, My soul can gradually recover, you don't have to worry. Besides, I don't want to rely on you for everything. I want to walk side by side with you. Honestly, she could have asked Yun Xiao to help her subdue these puppets from the very beginning. But with Yun Xiao's power, he would only be able to destroy these puppets. Since that was the case, she might as well make them her own and use them to increase her power. At the same time, in the depths of the hidden God Mountain, a woman who was sitting cross-legged suddenly opened her eyes. With a she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face was deathly pale and her beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Who was it? Who swallowed my spirit flames? And who took away my skeleton battle team? If I find out who did this, I will not let them off. She gritted her teeth as she spat out the last few words. Her own spirit flames had been swallowed, and she would need to recuperate for a long time before she could recover. How could she forgive the person who had swallowed her spirit flames? Yun Luofeng did not know what had happened in the depths of the hidden God Mountain. After subduing the skeletons, she had followed Yun Xiao and left the hidden God Mountain. But she could sense that Emo Qianqing, who was in the Shaman Demon Tribe's formation, was beginning to stir, and he seemed to be about to leave the formation. This feeling caused Yun Luofeng's heart to tremble. Emo Qianqing loved Zhu Qian deeply. In order to save Ji Jiutian and himself, she had impersonated Zhu Qian. If Emo Qianqing were to leave the array and find out about Yun Xiao's existence, he would definitely go crazy. However, Emo Qianqing was the center of the formation. Logically speaking, he shouldn't be able to leave the formation. So why was he so restless now? Yun Luofeng's heart gradually sank. She had to quickly increase her strength to deal with the upcoming problems. Furthermore, she must not let Emo Qianqing hurt Yun Xiao in the slightest. Master! Little Mo's voice trembled when he noticed this. Now that the situation is pressing, I must raise my strength to the level where I can fight against Emo Qianqing in the remaining time. Yun Luofeng clenched her fists, her beautiful face full of determination. Yun Xiao's sword-like brows gently knitted together as his black eyes turned towards Yun Luofeng and asked, What happened? Yun Luofeng was stunned. She regained her composure and stared deeply at the man in front of her. Her tone was firm. Yun Xiao, I will never let you leave me. Chapter 1570. This should be the place. Not long after Yun Luofeng left, a man and a woman slowly descended from the sky, their gazes fixed on the hidden God Mountain before them. Among the two, the woman in red was beautiful and valiant, her features somewhat similar to Yun Xiao's. The man was as gentle as jade, his affectionate eyes filled with worry at this moment, but he did not forget to comfort the woman beside him. June, Feng, will definitely be fine. Let's go find her now. June Fengling's eyes narrowed slightly, a dangerous glint flashing across them. I hope so. If I find out who hurt my daughter-in-law, I will grind her to ashes. Yi Jingchen's gaze turned to June Fengling, the corners of his lips curling up slightly. Let's go, June. Just as they were about to step into the hidden God Mountain, An old voice suddenly came from the side, filled with sorrow and sorrow. Back then, I should have stopped that girl from stepping into the hidden god mountain. I wonder if she's really in danger. Grandpa Jun's face was filled with a bitter smile, his voice filled with helplessness. Jun Fengling subconsciously looked at Grandpa Jun. When she saw the old man's wrinkled face, she couldn't help but frown. She did not know why, but this old man gave her a vague sense of familiarity. This feeling made her want to befriend him. Yi Jingchen clearly saw through his wife's thoughts. He raised his hand and patted her shoulder, then slowly walked towards Grandpa Jun and cupped his fists. "Elder, are you also here to look for someone?" Grandpa Jun's gaze fell on Yi Jingchen, his voice aged. "That's right. May I know who you are looking for, Elder?" "My granddaughter." "Granddaughter?" Yi Jingchen was stunned, a little disappointed. Yun Luofeng had met with danger in the hidden god mountain, and now this old man was also here to look for someone. He had originally thought that they would coincidentally be looking for the same person. He did not expect that this old man was looking for his granddaughter. Feng's grandfather was Yun Luo, so this old man was obviously not here for Brother Yi. Jun Fengling walked to Yi Jingchen's side and smiled at Grandpa Jun, Sr. "If you don't mind, why don't we travel together?" If Yi Jingchen were to invite him, Grandpa Sheng would definitely reject him. But when he saw the woman in front of him, he fell into a trance. If his daughter was here, she would probably be the same age as the woman in front of him. However, his daughter was still in the Wuhui continent, so it was impossible for her to appear here. All right. The old man would never accept any stranger trying to get close to him, but he could not bring himself to dislike the woman in red in front of him. Subconsciously, he wanted to get close to her. Cough, cough. When Yi Jingchen saw Grandpa Jun staring at his wife, he couldn't help but cough dryly. His handsome face looked a little unsightly. Grandpa Jun regained his composure, his expression somewhat awkward. His expression just now could easily be misunderstood as that of a lecher, but he couldn't help but want to watch her. It was not until many days later that Jun Fengling and Grandpa Jun finally understood what it meant to be fated. Willow Town. The market was extremely noisy, and the vendors' shouts rose and fell. From afar, Yun Luofeng saw a familiar figure, and his eyes flashed with surprise. Chapter 1571. Huang Yingying? Why was she here? At that moment, Huang Yingying seemed to have sensed someone looking at her. She raised her head and looked in that direction. In that instant, she was completely stunned as she stared at Yun Luofeng. Huang Yingying? When Yun Luofeng spoke those three names, Huang Yingying's body suddenly trembled. She hurriedly covered her trembling lips to prevent herself from screaming out loud. Miss Yun! She had finally seen her? Suddenly, Huang Yingying's light yellow dress streaked across the sky and stood in front of Yun Luofeng. She stared at the woman in white in front of her and asked word by word, "Are you really Miss Yun?" Was she dreaming? "Huang Yingying, why are you here?" Compared to 3 years ago, the woman's voice was even more mature and steady. The only thing that didn't change was her demonic tone. "Miss Yun." Huang Yingying smiled. Her ice-cold face, like a melting ice cube, was filled with warmth at this moment. "When I heard that you were still alive, I went to the Jun family to find you. Who knew that I was one step too late and you had already left? In order to find you, I chased you all the way to this place. Who would have thought that we would meet here?" In reality, Yun Luofeng didn't have much feelings for Huang Yingying. She had helped her because they had a common enemy. It wasn't because of Huang Yingying, but now, it seemed that Huang Yingying hadn't had a good time during the 3 years he had been missing. The girl who had been as graceful as an oriole had unknowingly been covered with coldness. Looking at Huang Yingying's blossoming smile, Yun Luofeng's heart was moved. It was an unintentional help, but it had helped her obtain a person who had given her his true heart. "Miss Yingying." Suddenly, an anxious voice came from behind Huang Yingying. At that moment, Yun Luofeng could clearly feel Huang Yingying's body stiffen. When Yun Luofeng looked up, he saw a man dressed in luxurious clothes appear next to Huang Yingying. His face was full of joy. "I thought I was seeing things. I didn't think that it was really you." "Young Master Ling Shuang, please conduct yourself with dignity." Huang Yingying frowned slightly when she saw the luxurious man raising his hand to pull Huang Yingying's arm. She instinctively dodged and said coldly. The man's body shook and his eyes were filled with sorrow. Yingying, it's only been 3 years. Why have you changed? Huang Yingying sneered and glanced coldly at the man's handsome face. 3 years ago, your father came looking for me and warned me not to get close to you. Now, it's me who looks down on you. Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes slightly. It seemed that after Huang Yingying left the sorcerer demon tribe 3 years ago, she did not follow Hong Luan. Instead, something happened between her and the young master of the North Continent Prefecture? If he wasn't wrong, this man called Ling Shuang was Hong Luan's ex-fiance's younger brother. Ling Shuang clenched his fists tightly. His face was filled with pain. He did not understand, how could this beautiful girl become so cold? Miss Yun. Huang Yingying ignored Ling Shuang and turned to smile at Yun Luofeng. Don't worry about him. Let's go. Yun Luofeng nodded slightly. Later, tell me what happened between you and the North Continent Prefecture. Huang Yingying's body was a little stiff, as if recalling those unbearable memories. Her face was a little pained. Chapter 1572. In the inn. It was simple and clean. Huang Yingying poured a cup of tea for Yun Luofeng before sitting in front of her. 3 years ago, the leader of the sorcerer demon tribe asked me to use the sorcerer demon flower to save Lady Hong Luan, so I left the sorcerer demon tribe. Moreover, after Lady Hong Luan woke up, I wanted to train by myself. It was also during my training that I met Ling Shuang. Huang Yingying's smile was bitter. Ling Shuang doesn't have the arrogant temperament of a typical young master. His personality is very gentle, and he takes care of me everywhere. I have never experienced love before, so I fell into it, but after the Continent Lord found out about us, he came to find me and ordered me to leave Ling Shuang. Yun Luofeng took a sip of tea and raised his eyebrows slightly. He did not know that you were the Holy Virgin of the Witch Demon tribe? Huang Yingying shook her head. I did not tell Ling Shuang my identity. When the Continent Lord came to find me, the 2 people that the leader sent to protect me wanted to stand up for me, but I stopped them. The Continent Lord's residence of the North Continent is so powerful, so why should I stick to him? If he wants to find someone of equal status for Ling Shuang, then let him find one. I no longer care about the position of the young madam of the Continent Lord's residence. The Continent Lord's residence of the North Continent was the power that dominated the North Continent. However, the Witch Demon tribe came from the highly ranked Central Continent. Furthermore, the power of the Witch Demon tribe could even be compared to the Continent Lord's residence of the Central Continent. If there had not been a traitor in the Witch Demon tribe back then, with the strength of the leader of the Witch Demon tribe, even if all the powerful cultivators of the Poison Valley came, he could destroy them without even taking a breath. One could imagine how powerful the Witch Demon tribe was in the Central Continent. It could be said that as long as the Central Continent existed, the legacy of the Witch Demon tribe would also be as long as it existed. If not for the changes that happened in the tribe many years ago, perhaps the Witch Demon tribe would have become a power that surpassed all the continents. How did Ling Shuang treat you? Yun Luofeng thought for a while and asked. Huang Yingying's body trembled and she lowered her eyes slightly. Ling Shuang treated me very well, but he was not firm enough. If Ling Shuang could be more resolute, perhaps, their ending would not be like this. His father found a fiancée for him. He didn't accept it, but he didn't reject it either. He just told me to wait. Huang Yingying laughed bitterly. He said that one day his father would accept us. But in the end, what I got was a warning from his father. After saying this, Huang Yingying looked up at Yun Luofeng and bit her lip. Back then, I returned to the shaman demon tribe in tears. When I learned of your death, the tribe chief lied to me. He said that if I completed the inheritance, you would return. 3 years ago, when she heard the news of Yun Luofeng's death, she almost broke down. Coupled with the heartbreak, she wanted to give up on herself. However, the clan leader's words gave her confidence and hope. Huang Yingying's heart was filled with guilt. The clan leader had done this for her sake. She really shouldn't have been so cruel to him. Yun Luofeng stroked her chin. She had almost forgotten about the North Continent Prefecture. By the way, Miss Yun, I heard that you went to the Hidden God Mountain to find the Ghost Emperor. Did you find him? Yun Luofeng raised his eyes slightly and said with a smile, because I recently lacked medicinal herbs, so he just went to the medicine shop to buy them. I was originally waiting for him at the market, but who knew that I would meet you? Whether it was the small tree or the gold-seeking rat, they both used medicinal herbs as nutrients. Now, there was another pet that used medicinal herbs as food, Little Worm. Chapter 1573. Miss Yun, Huang Yingying smiled faintly. Her eyes and brows were curved and looked extremely beautiful. What are your plans after this? Plans? Yun Luofeng paused for a moment before a cold light flashed across her eyes. My top priority right now is to increase my power. She would not only have to face the Sacred Lady clan but also Emo Qianxing, who was eyeing her covetously. Besides, her lies could fool Emo Qianxing for a while, but they could not fool him forever. He would eventually see through them. That's right. Huang Yingying suddenly remembered something. I remember that Hong Luan had gone to the Beast Continent and there was no news of her after that. When news of your survival had spread, the people of the East Continent wanted to find Hong Luan. However, they had searched the entire Beast Continent and could not find any trace of Hong Luan. Just then, the room door was pushed open. Yun Luofeng turned around, and when she saw the black-robed man slowly walking in, the corners of her lips curled into a wicked smile. Yun Xiao, have you finished your business? Yun Xiao paused and asked, You want to go to the Beast Continent? Hong Luan's whereabouts were unknown in the Beast Continent. Based on Yun Luofeng's character, she would certainly head to the Beast Continent. Yes. Yun Luofeng's eyes were pitch black. I want to find Hong Luan. Alright, I'll go with you. Yun Xiao gently raised the corners of her lips. Besides, I have some forces in the Beast Continent. This time, I'll take this opportunity to hand those people over to you. Ever since Yun Luofeng had arrived on the 7 continents, she had not seen the forces that Yun Xiao had established. Since she had decided to scout the way for Yun Luofeng, she could not possibly leave empty-handed. Now, Yun Luofeng finally found out that Yun Xiao's forces were all in the Beast Continent. Yun Xiao, when you were being hunted down, why did you not use the forces in your hands? Hearing this, the man fell silent. After a long pause, he replied honestly, I had prepared those people for you. I would not allow any casualties. Besides, I don't think that the people who were hunting me could really hurt me. This sentence was domineering and awe-inspiring. The man's expressionless face was cold and murderous. A storm seemed to be brewing in his dark eyes. I know the way to the Beast Continent. Huang Yingying bit her lips. To get to the Beast Continent, we need to pass through the Northern Continent. When we reach the Beast Continent, we will come across a desert. Once we cross the desert, we will be able to reach the Beast Continent. The North Continent. Huang Yingying's heart still trembled when she said those 2 words. Return to the Sorcerer Demon Tribe. Yun Luofeng turned to look at Huang Yingying and said calmly, The leader of the Sorcerer Demon Tribe should be looking for you. Moreover, Yun Xiao's power was in the Beast Continent, so he would definitely be very familiar with the route to the Beast Continent. No, Huang Yingying shook her head and said, I plan to accept the Sorcerer Tribe to help you. Before I find Miss Hong Luan, I won't go back. After saying this, Huang Yingying lifted her skirt and walked in front of Yun Luofeng. She half knelt on the ground, her expression respectful and firm. Miss Yun, please allow me to follow you. I will never turn my back on you for the rest of my life. Yun Luofeng lowered his eyes and stared at the young girl's determined expression. Suddenly, she laughed. If you follow me, you will have to endure many dangers and hardships. Perhaps you might not even be able to hold on to your life in the next moment. If that's the case, do you still want to follow me? Huang Yingying smiled bitterly. My loved ones have been murdered. If it wasn't for the sake of revenge, I would have followed them long ago. Now that I have my revenge, even if I lose my life, I have no regrets. Chapter 1574. Alright, that's your choice. I'll keep you by my side from now on. Yun Luofeng raised his hand and helped Huang Yingying up. His voice was evil and calm. Huang Yingying was delighted. To be honest, she was already prepared to be rejected. Who knew that Yun Luofeng would actually accept? Miss, To get to the Beast Continent, we have to go through the Northern Continent. I'm worried that the people in the Northern Continent might not let us pass. Every city gate in the Northern Continent was guarded. If they wanted to pass through the Northern Continent, they had to go through the city gates. If the Northern Continent was not willing to let them pass, they would have to use force. Otherwise, they would not be able to get to the Beast Continent. Why is the Northern Continent not willing to let us pass? Even if she had enmity with Ling Chen from the Northern Continent, he couldn't have posted her portrait at the city gates just to prevent them from passing. The Ghost Emperor should know about this. The Beast Continent is different from the other continents. In the Beast Continent, most of the people are spiritual beasts. There are very few humans. Moreover, the Beast Clan likes to attack humans. As such, the relationship between the other continents and the Beast Continent is not good. However, the Beast Continent is the most powerful of all the continents, a territory established by spiritual beasts. To be able to stand firm against so many humans, one could imagine the power of the Beast Continent. As such, the city gate between the Beast Continent and the Beast Continent is heavily guarded. The humans in the Beast Continent can come out, but they will not let any humans in. I don't think that the people in the Northern Continent would be so kind as to prevent humans from going to the Beast Continent. Yun Luofeng asked slowly. Huang Yingying shook her head helplessly. Miss, humans are greedy. The spiritual beasts in the Beast Continent are all very powerful. Most of the spiritual beasts have already swallowed the man transformation fruit and turned into humans. To humans, this is a treasure that they can only dream of. As such, for many years, humans have always wanted to enter the Beast Continent and form contracts with the spiritual beasts to fight for them. At this point, Huang Yingying's voice became cautious. However, in the end, those humans instead submitted to the spiritual beasts, allowing the Beast Continent to become more and more powerful. Yun Luofeng raised an eyebrow. Why? This. Huang Yingying pursed her lips. It said that those spiritual beasts that transform into humans are all extremely beautiful, and they're even more beautiful than humans. There's also the Fox clan that's skilled in seductive arts that bewitches those men until they're willing to abandon their humanity and become their spiritual beast slaves. In order to prevent the number of strong warriors in the continent from decreasing, all the continents unanimously decided to forbid any strong warriors from entering the Beast Continent. Hence, the Beast Continent became a place where one could only leave but not enter. But any strong martial artists who left the Beast Continent would be monitored by the major powers to ensure that they would not be brainwashed by the Beast Clan. As for those weak humans who wanted to leave the Beast Continent, as soon as he left, he was secretly killed by the experts of the North Continent. How did you enter the Beast Continent at that time? Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and looked at Yun Xiao as he asked with a smile that was not a smile. The place that the wormhole reaches is the Beast Continent. What about the people who were monitoring you after you left the Beast Continent? Dead? Yun Xiao's words were simple and shocking. Yun Luofeng stroked his chin with his finger. I don't know how Hong Luan managed to enter the Beast Continent, but I know that I must enter the Beast Continent. Yun Xiao, Huang Yingying, let's set off today. The earlier we go, the less danger Hong Luan will encounter. Chapter 1575. On the street. It was as noisy as before. Yun Luofeng and the others had just stepped out of the inn when they met the haunting Ling Shuang. He stared straight at Huang Yingying with undisguised adoration. Yingying, don't throw a tantrum. Come back with me. Father has already promised me that he won't stop us. Huang Yingying laughed coldly. Do you think I will believe you? How could such a snobbish person accept me? Yingying, it doesn't matter if my father accepts you or not. As long as you come back with me, I will marry you. Ling Shuang's gaze was urgent. He stepped forward to pull Huang Yingying. Huang Yingying moved to the side and dodged his hand. Her lips curled into a cold smile. Why should I believe a man without courage like you? After saying this, Huang Yingying did not look at Ling Shuang again. She stood respectfully behind Yun Luofeng. Miss, we don't have to care about him. We can continue. Miss. Ling Shuang's eyes were filled with shock. He looked at Yun Luofeng in astonishment. His expression did not look too good. Yingying, you're a servant? Huang Yingying was just a servant? Impossible. Based on Huang Yingying's temperament, how could she be someone else's servant? Even if she was just a young lady, her father might not stop her. Why was she just a servant? Huang Yingying's gaze changed from disappointment to disgust. As expected, the people of the North Continent Prefecture were all so powerful. Why did she have to keep thinking about him? Miss, Ling Shuang's eyes flashed a few times and she slowly walked in front of Yun Luofeng. She cupped her fists and said, I know you are Yingying's master. I wonder if you are willing to help me with something? I want you to accept Yingying as your sworn sister. This way I can persuade my father. He did not know Yun Luofeng's identity. But looking at her temperament, even if she was not the young lady of a first-rate family, she would be at least second-rate. Even if this identity was not compatible with the North Continent Prefecture, at least there was a glimmer of hope. Yun Zhao's cold eyes gradually turned towards Ling Shuang, his eyes filled with a strong murderous intent. This aura made Ling Shuang's body tremble. However, in order to marry Huang Yingying, he still looked at Yun Luofeng with determination. Yun Luofeng laughed. Why should I help you? Miss, you're not helping me, you're helping yourself. Ling Shuang's expression was a little unhappy. If I marry Yingying, she'll be the young madam of the North Continent's Continent Master's mansion. Your status will rise as well. This is a very worthwhile deal. If it wasn't for Yingying, he definitely wouldn't say a word to this blind woman. North Continent Prefecture? Yun Luofeng tilted his head, his evil eyes revealing a hint of a smile. That's right. Ling Shuang held his head high and puffed out his chest. I'm the young master of the North Continent Prefecture. At this moment, Ling Shuang was waiting for Yun Luofeng's shock and fawning. If anyone else had the opportunity to see someone from the Continent Lord's mansion, they would immediately kneel down and hug their thighs without exception. But, facing the arrogant Ling Shuang, the evil smile on Yun Luofeng's lips became even more pronounced. I only know that there is a Ling Chen in the North Continent Prefecture. This Ling Chen betrayed Hong Wan and wanted to pester her endlessly. In the end, he suffered retribution. Ling Shuang's body stiffened. He raised his head in shock, his startled gaze landing on Yun Luofeng. This woman knew Hong Wan? Even Huang Yingying, who was standing at the side, was stunned. Chapter 1576. She had stayed in the Northern Continent for so long, but did not know that Hong Wan and Ling Chen had such a relationship. In reality, Ling Chen had lost all face in the Eastern Continent, so how could he continue to be a topic of conversation? As such, he had ordered for all news to be sealed, so that Huang Yingying would not know about the relationship between the two of them. Wait! Seeing that Yun Luofeng and the others were about to leave, Ling Shuang became anxious, and subconsciously raised his head to grab Yun Luofeng's arm. At this moment, the grim-faced man in black glanced at him coldly and spat out a word from his thin lips. Scram. Poochie. Ling Shuang's body flew out and landed in the inn. He coughed up a mouthful of blood, and his handsome face was pale. He wanted to stand up, but felt as if his body was being crushed by a mountain, and could only watch as Yun Luofeng and the others left. Northern Continent. Continent Lord's mansion. Ling Chen furiously swept the tea on the table to the ground, and angrily yelled, Scram, all of you scram. The servants were so scared that they did not even dare to say a word, and hurriedly left. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps could be heard. Ling Chen was about to explode again, but after seeing the man who had stepped into the room, he swallowed his words, and his face was still ashen. Didn't you go to find your beloved woman? What? You've returned home? Ling Shuang tightly clenched his fists. Big brother, do you know a woman in white? Woman in white? At that moment, a beautiful face appeared in Ling Chen's mind. It was the same face that made him grit his teeth in hatred. Why do you ask? When I went to find Yingying, I found out that she was only a servant, and her master seemed to be related to Hong Wan. Hong Wan? Ling Chen suddenly raised his head and stared at the handsome man standing in front of him. Yun Luofeng, is it really that damned woman? Ling Shuang looked down. Big brother, do you know who Yun Luofeng is? He's just an insignificant person. He only dared to act like a tyrant because he caught Hong Wan's eye. Ling Chen fiercely gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with viciousness. Ling Shuang was disappointed. He sighed. I originally thought that she should be a young miss of an aristocratic family, so I planned to force her to acknowledge Yingying as her younger sister and help Yingying get rid of her status as a slave. Unfortunately, her status is very low, so how could she help Yingying? Ling Chen fell silent. After a while, a vicious look flashed in his eyes. If you want to marry Huang Yingying, it's very simple. I have a way. The prerequisite is that you help me kill that woman, Yun Luofeng. Ling Shuang was a little surprised. Help you? How can I help you? Humph, don't think that I don't know that when my body became ill, my father had gradually handed over the power of the Continent Lord's mansion to you. Now that my father is not in the Continent Lord's mansion, you have the right to mobilize the masters in the mansion. I want you to send those people to kill her. Ling Shuang's expression was extremely awkward. Big brother, father is also, you don't have to explain to me. It doesn't matter if I don't become the young master of the North Continent. What I want to do is to kill Yun Luofeng. Ling Chen's fingers dug into his flesh, causing blood to flow out. However, he did not feel anything. After you help me, I'll give you an idea. This idea can make father agree to you too. Ling Shuang thought for a moment, then nodded in agreement. All right, big brother, I'll do as you say. Chapter 1577. At this moment, on the streets of the northern continent, a beautiful scene unwittingly attracted everyone's attention. A man and a woman were walking in the middle of the street. The woman's clothes were whiter than snow, and her beauty could topple cities. Her face was slightly demonic, and her pitch-black eyes seemed to glow. The man standing beside her was handsome and cold. His black clothes were like a hawk in the night, dangerous and sharp. Logically speaking, Huang Yingying could be considered a rare beauty, but standing behind these two people, she seemed to be overshadowed. Stop. At the city gate, the two guards immediately blocked their path when they saw the group of people walking towards them. The road to the Beast Continent is in front. Without the orders of the Continent Lord, no one is allowed to pass. The guards' expressions were cold, and they were as unmoving as a mountain. Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and looked at Yun Xiao with a smile. Leave these people to me. How about it? All right. Boom. As soon as Yun Xiao spoke, the ground beside Yun Luofeng trembled. Shortly after, a tattered puppet appeared beside Yun Luofeng. Yun Yi, kill anyone who dares to stop us. Kill without mercy. These three words were domineering and incomparably arrogant. Yun Yi expressionlessly charged towards the two guards. With a boom, his fist punched out, and the guards at the city gate were immediately sent flying, their bodies heavily smashing against the city gate. Who is so bold as to come to our northern continent to cause trouble? Boom. Suddenly, a powerful force descended from the void. Not long after, an elder tore through the void and quickly arrived, standing in front of Yun Luofeng. At the same time, the sound of footsteps came from behind. Shortly after, an army surrounded Yun Luofeng and the others. Yun Luofeng, you've really worn out iron shoes in fruitless search, only to find it by chance. I never thought that you would dare to come to our northern continent's territory. Ha! Arrogant and sinister laughter fell into Yun Luofeng's ears like leaves blown by the wind. The army spread out, and in that instant, Ling Chen and Ling Shuang walked out from behind the army, arrogantly walking in front of Yun Luofeng and the others. Ling Shuang immediately saw Huang Yingying standing behind Yun Luofeng and hurriedly said, Yingying, hurry and come to my side. I will protect you from harm. Faced with Ling Shuang's urgency, Huang Yingying sneered, and a mocking smile appeared on her lips. She simply turned her head and no longer looked at Ling Shuang. Ling Shuang was both angry and anxious. She really did not understand why Huang Yingying was so stubborn. She would rather be a servant than be the young madam of the Continent Lord's manor? Everyone. Ling Chen turned to look at the crowd, a sinister light in his eyes. This girl called Huang Yingying was ordered by someone to seduce my little brother and steal the treasures of the Continent Lord's residence. Very few people knew about Ling Chen's experiences in the Eastern Continent, so in the eyes of most people, Ling Chen still had a good character. Hearing Ling Chen's words, everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. Such a beautiful little girl was actually a thief? And she even risked her life to come to the Continent Lord's residence to steal? Big brother, what do you mean by that? Ling Shuang's expression completely changed. That's clearly not what you promised me before. Ling Chen curled his lips. Second brother, I'm doing this for your own good. I don't want you to sink into depravity because of a little servant girl. Moreover, these elders here also don't want you to make such a mistake. Chapter 1578. Even though the Continent Lord had passed power to Ling Shuang, as the future mistress of the Continent Lord's residence, how could a servant girl take on the role? As such, facing Ling Shuang's pleading gaze, the elders acted as if they did not see it. Such a daring thief deserves to die. The gray-robed elder coldly snorted, looking down at Yun Luo Feng and the others. Plus, you dared to attack someone from the northern continent, so you deserve to die. Elder. Ling Shuang's lips were pale, his body trembled, and his face was filled with pain. He regretted it. He regretted trusting Ling Chen and summoning the clan's elders. Who knew that Ling Chen would not even let Yingying off? Second brother, Ling Chen sighed, and walked to Ling Shuang's side, patting him on the shoulder. I'll tell you the truth. Everything I've said is backed up by evidence. Huang Yingying really did steal from the Northern Continent Palace. Otherwise, why do you think father wouldn't allow you two to be together? Ling Shuang shook his head. Impossible, Yingying is not that kind of person. Hearing this, Ling Chen subconsciously looked at the gray-robed elder. This gray-robed elder had the most authority in the Northern Continent Prefecture, so his words were more trustworthy. Young master is right. Huang Yingying did indeed steal from the Northern Continent Prefecture. The great elder's voice was hoarse as he slowly spoke. Ling Shuang would be the person in charge of the Northern Continent Prefecture. As such, in order to avoid future revenge, they could only slander Huang Yingying. Huang Yingying was dumbfounded. Her eyes widened in shock, as if she did not expect these people to frame her. Yingying, tell me, is what they said true? Ling Shuang looked at Huang Yingying in pain, and asked with a trembling voice. Huang Yingying laughed mockingly. Although I don't want to marry you, I don't want to be a scapegoat. Ling Shuang, listen carefully. I did not take a single copper from your Northern Continent Prefecture. I'm also afraid that the stench from your copper will contaminate my hands. Huh, Ling Shuang laughed at himself. Yingying, how many times do you want to lie to me? I remember that you only told me that you went out alone to gain experience, but you didn't tell me that you were just a servant girl. He took a few steps back with a bitter taste in his mouth. If I had known that you were a maidservant, perhaps I wouldn't have fallen for you, and I wouldn't have been in such a difficult position. But why did you hide it from me? Ling Shuang had already been driven mad. He roared at Huang Yingying. He already felt that everything was Huang Yingying's fault. She had failed to live up to her infatuation. Huang Yingying's body was trembling. She was obviously furious. Suddenly, a hand landed on her shoulder and pressed on her trembling shoulder, bringing some warmth to her ice-cold body. Yun Luofeng had a smile on his face as he glanced at Ling Shuang. I want to ask you a few questions. First, you keep saying that Huang Yingying lied to you, but have you ever asked about her identity? Second, they accused Huang Yingying of theft. Where's the evidence? Ling Shuang was shocked. He had indeed not asked about Huang Yingying's identity. That was because he never expected that Huang Yingying would be a maidservant. Feng Yun Xiao frowned slightly. The murderous intent in his cold voice intensified. Why waste time on these people? In other words, it was enough to get rid of them directly. Why waste time? Chapter 1579. At the city gates, a gale raged. A cold and austere aura filled the air, causing people to tremble. Ling Shuang's body froze as he stared at the man in black in fear. He did not know why, but this man gave him the feeling that he had come from hell. His entire body was filled with killing intent. Puchi. In the void, that gray-robed elder had yet to react when he saw Yun Zhao's cold eyes sweeping over. At the same time, it was as though an invisible sword had pierced through his body. With a boom, his body smashed down from the void. The entire street was silent. The crowd that had previously looked at Yun Zhao had already turned from their initial amazement to fear. In the end, they scattered like a flock of birds and quickly dispersed. They were afraid that if they continued to stay, they would become collateral damage. Soon, apart from the people from the Continent Lord's mansion, only Yun Luofeng and his group remained. A drop of cold sweat rolled down Ling Chen's forehead. His face was pale, and his lips trembled. What do you want? If you really kill someone from the northern continent, you'll become enemies with the 7 continents. Are you sure you want to do this? The 7 continents were bound together for good or bad. No matter how much internal strife there was, they were still like 4 legs of a tripod. If one of the continents was attacked, the other continents would also become enemies with them. This was Ling Chen's last bit of confidence. Yun Luofeng's smile was lazy and evil. His evil eyes looked at Ling Chen's pale face. Will the northern continent let us go if we don't kill you? Ling Chen hurriedly nodded. That's right. If you let me go, we'll write off our grievances. Even if you have the eastern continent to back you up, don't forget that apart from the eastern continent, there are also the western continent, southern continent, central continent, and spirit continent. He paused, then continued. Do you think that by allying with the eastern continent, you'll be able to oppose the 5 continents? That's right, there's also the sorcerer clan. Seeing that Yun Luofeng did not speak, Ling Chen's eyes flashed, and he continued to threaten. The sorcerer clan in the central continent is very powerful and is comparable to the Continent Lord's mansion. As such, you'll be making enemies with 6 powerful forces. Sorcerer clan? Yun Luofeng laughed evilly. I'm afraid you'll be disappointed in the end. Ling Chen's eyes widened. At this moment, there was a loud bang, and a black flame appeared under his feet, instantly covering his body. His heart-wrenching screams resounded throughout heaven and earth, causing one's hair to stand on end. Yun Xiao calmly retracted his hand. He just didn't like anyone threatening Yun Luofeng. Huang Yingying. Yun Luofeng looked up at Huang Yingying. This man, how do you want to deal with him? Huang Yingying's body trembled and she lowered her head. After a moment of silence, she looked up at Yun Luofeng. Miss, even though he trusted someone else, he didn't do anything to harm me. So, I won't do anything to him. But since he wanted to harm you, miss, you should personally deal with him. Yingying. Ling Shuang's face paled. He didn't think that Huang Yingying would be so heartless that she didn't care about his life or death. Huang Yingying simply turned her head and didn't look at Ling Shuang anymore. She was afraid that if she looked at him again, she wouldn't be able to control herself. Yun Yi, cripple Ling Shuang. As for the rest, kill them. This time, the northern continent had suffered heavy losses. Countless powerful elders had been killed, and of the 2 youths from the northern continent, one was dead and the other was injured. To the northern continent's continent lord, this was a heavy blow. Perhaps they wouldn't be able to recover even after a few decades. Chapter 1580. Yun Xiao. Yun Luofeng stretched lazily and rested his head on Yun Xiao's shoulder. The corners of his lips curled into an angle as he said, I'm tired. Then rest for a while. We'll reach the beast continent in a while. Yun Xiao lowered his eyes and looked at the young girl on his shoulder. He lifted his arms and lifted her up. With a swoosh, his figure quickly broke through the city gates and leapt into the sky. Their long hair fluttered in the wind. Their white dresses and black robes fluttered in the air. They were as beautiful as a painting. Huang Yingying blinked in surprise. Just as she was about to chase after Yun Luofeng, she saw Yun Luofeng lowering his eyes to look at the puppet below. Then, Ying carried Huang Yingying and rushed towards Yun Luofeng and the others at lightning speed. As a puppet, he naturally could not fly in the air. However, he did not know fatigue and ran at lightning speed on the ground. Huang Yingying, who was carried on his shoulder, nearly fainted as she saw stars. As one of the main cities of the Beast continent, the Beast City was bustling with activity. There were birds and beasts galloping through the streets. Such a scene could not be seen in the other continents. At this moment, within the Beast City, the beasts who were walking in the city suddenly saw 2 men and 2 women walking into the city. They could not help but stop in their tracks. The 2 people walking in front were exceptionally outstanding. The man was handsome and cool while the woman was devastatingly beautiful. Even the Fox clan, who were known for their beauty, could not compare to these 2. Quick, hurry and report to Her Highness, there are more humans coming. The Beast City was different from the other continents. The main cities of the other continents were all in the central zone. Only this beast city was the first city one had to pass upon entering the beast continent. However, the beast continent did not have a continent lord's office. Instead, it was established by the various clans of the beast clan. For example, this beast city was occupied by the most barbaric of the legendary leopard clan. Her Highness, the princess that they spoke of, was the eldest daughter of the leopard king. It was said that the princess of the leopard clan was unreasonable and loved handsome men. Any man that caught her, I would not be able to escape her clutches, except, a few days ago, a man that she had taken a liking to had been snatched away by her younger sister. As she could not harm her own clan, she could only swallow her resentment. The sound of footsteps came from the front of the street. Yun Xiao, who was chatting with Yun Luofeng, unconsciously furrowed his sword-like eyebrows. He looked coldly at the army that was quickly approaching. In front of the army was an extremely beautiful woman with a wild nature. She held a javelin in her hand and her chest was bare. Her domineering eyes swept over the handsome man in black robes and a hint of greed flashed in her eyes. She had seen many humans, but this was the only one with such exquisite looks. Even the fox man who had been snatched away by his younger sister couldn't compare to this man. Hey! Thinking of this, the beautiful woman raised her chin and said in a domineering manner, "From now on, you are mine. Apart from me, no other women are allowed to appear by your side. So, guards." Her voice paused and she said coldly, "Kill all the women. As for the men, bring them all back. I don't like people who have polluted my man to still be alive in this world." Although Yun Yi looked ordinary and his body was riddled with scars, this man looked burly and powerful. His skills in bed should be pretty good. Chapter 1581. As for Yun Luofeng and Huang Yingying, the beautiful lady scoffed. She only wanted men. As a woman, she could not escape death. Furthermore, she would never allow any woman to lay a finger on her man. "Yes, Your Highness." In an instant, many leopard clan guards surrounded Yun Luofeng and the others. The javelins in their hands were aimed at their bodies. Yun Xiao pulled Yun Luofeng into his arms with his large hand. His cold gaze swept across the leopard clan guards surrounding them. A cold light flashed across his eyes and a murderous aura spread out, covering the entire street. Bang! Bang bang bang! No one saw how Yun Xiao made his move. The front row of leopard clan guards suddenly emitted the sound of an explosion. Then, a mist of blood filled the air and the smell of blood filled their noses. The leopard princess's face darkened, and she snorted coldly, "Foolish humans! In the leopard clan's territory, all you need to do is obey us. You even dared to kill my leopard clan guards. If it wasn't for your good looks, I would have dismembered you long ago." "Big sister." Just at this moment, a cold voice rang out from behind. "You're snatching human men again." Yun Xiao had just raised his hand and a strong spiritual energy gradually formed in his hand. However, before he could make a move against the leopard clan princess, a lily-white hand suddenly landed on his hand and held it tightly. "Yun Xiao, don't make a move. Let's wait and see." The beast continent was very powerful. Otherwise, they would not have been unable to subdue it even after a few continents joined forces. Yun Luofeng did not know how powerful Yun Xiao was. Hence, she asked Yun Xiao to stop for now and wait and see. It would not be too late to make a move then. She was not a person who was willing to suffer losses. She would not act impulsively unless she had absolute confidence. "Why are you here?" The leopard clan princess turned to look at the young girl behind her. A look of disgust flashed across her eyes. This young girl bore some resemblance to the leopard clan princess. Unfortunately, there was a scar on her originally beautiful face, ruining her beauty. In the beast continent, which was famous for its beauties, she was indeed an oddity. "Big sister, feelings are supposed to be mutual. Why do you always try to seize him by force?" The young girl frowned as she questioned. "Umph." The leopard clan princess snorted coldly, "As long as this princess takes a fancy to someone, I won't let them off. Li, I advise you to mind your own business. Otherwise, I won't be as easy to talk to as last time." Li smiled disapprovingly. "What if I insist on poking my nose into this matter? Then don't blame me for being rude. In the Panther clan, even though the eldest princess was the most beautiful and was doted on by the Panther king, the one with the greatest talent was still the little princess. Although the little princess was young, her strength was already on par with the first princess. Given time, she would be able to surpass her. Unfortunately, the little princess had lost her beauty many years ago. Otherwise, the little princess would definitely be the most popular woman in the Beast City. The eldest princess gritted her teeth in anger. Ely, I've already given you the man you fancied. If you try to snatch him from me again, don't blame me for complaining to my imperial father. Ely smiled and ignored the eldest princess. She slowly walked towards Yun Luofeng with a courteous and friendly smile on her face. Miss Yun, since you've come to our Beast City, you're our guest. I won't allow anyone to treat you rudely. Chapter 1582. Yun Luofeng frowned. This Panther princess knew who she was? Yun Luofeng grew wary at the thought. Yun Xiao, who was next to him, shielded her in her arms and stared coldly at the young girl. Miss Yun, you don't have to be so nervous. I've heard about you from Hu Li. Hu Li? Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao looked at each other, then at Li. You know Hu Li? Hu Li. Li lowered her head shyly. Is my husband. Yun Luofeng froze on the spot like thunder. Hu Li had been missing for so long. Had he come to the Beast clan to become the emperor's son-in-law? Could it be that the man the two Panther princesses were fighting over was Hu Li? My husband guessed that Miss Yun would come to the Beast continent. He drew a portrait of you and asked me to pay attention to you. So, when I saw you just now, I couldn't help but step forward. Compared to the barbaric Panther princess, this little princess's words were very comforting. Yun Luofeng paused, then said, I want to see Hu Li. All right, Miss Yun, please follow me. Li bowed to Yun Luofeng with the Beast clan's etiquette, then turned and walked towards the palace. When she arrived in front of the eldest princess, she stopped in her tracks and her lips curled into a slight smile. Eldest sister, these people are my guests. I hope you can be more courteous. Otherwise, don't blame me for not considering our kinship. The princess trembled with anger. She clenched her fists tightly and glared at Li angrily. This damned stinky girl, she was really making enemies with her in every way. Hu Li was one thing, but this man was so outstanding. She would never let him go. Suddenly, the princess felt a sharp pain on her face. It was so painful that she screamed. She held her cheek tightly, feeling the pain. Prince? The guard quickly walked to the princess's side. After seeing her current appearance, he was clearly shocked. What are you waiting for? Look at my face. What's wrong? Why does it hurt so much? Seeing the princess's angry expression, one of the female guards hesitated for a moment, then took out a mirror from her lapel. The princess did not have time to ask why the female guard would carry a mirror with her, because at that moment, she had already seen the person in the mirror. Ah! When she saw the rash on her face, she screamed, rolled her eyes, and fainted. Yun Luofeng and the others acted as if they did not notice the commotion behind them. Only Yun Xiao was looking at Yun Luofeng with a pair of smiling eyes. Others might not have noticed, but it was impossible for him not to see Yun Luofeng's movements. His wife really didn't know how to take a loss. The leopard princess was most proud of her looks, so she decided to destroy it, but he loved her deeply, didn't he? We're here. This is the palace of our Panther race. Li stopped in her tracks and turned to Yun Luofeng and the others with a faint smile. Yun Xiao. Before entering the palace, Yun Luofeng frowned slightly and spoke in a voice that only the two of them could hear. I don't know if this Li is trustworthy, but I had no choice but to come here. Therefore, we must be on high alert to prevent any accidents from happening. After all, she'd only just met Li, so how could she possibly trust her? In order to find Hu Li and Wu, she was willing to take the risk. Chapter 1583. No one can hurt you. Yun Xiao paused before replying seriously. If the Panther clan wants to hurt you, then there's no need for the Panther clan to exist. Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a smile. She paid no heed to Yun Xiao's words as she walked through the magnificent palace gates, keeping her guard up at all times. Fortunately, nothing happened along the way. They walked into the back garden without any obstructions. It was at this moment that the man sitting in the pavilion suddenly fell into her eyes, Yun Luofeng. Hu Li also saw Yun Luofeng and a look of joy flashed across his eyes. His figure quickly streaked across the sky and landed in front of her. "You're here." Yun Luofeng glanced behind Hu Li but did not see that small figure. She frowned and asked, "Where's Wu?" This little boy, whom she called Wu Yi, was the one she had picked up on the road and had asked Hu Li to look after. Hu Li froze and lowered his head guiltily. "I'm sorry, I lost him." "Lost him?" Yun Luofeng raised his brows and asked. Hu Li laughed bitterly. "I found out that Hong Luan had come to the Beast Continent, so I brought Wu Yi to this place. Who knew that we would encounter danger in the desert and I lost her? It's all right. If that fellow really harbors ill intentions, he will appear again." Yun Luofeng shrugged and said with a faint smile, "Hu Li, can you tell me how you became the Panther clan's son-in-law?" "This." Hu Li coughed dryly and looked a little embarrassed. "When I entered the Beast City, I was harassed by the Panther clan's eldest princess. In order to help me, Princess Yi Li pretended to like me. Otherwise, he would probably have become a member of the Panther clan's eldest princess harem." Thinking of this, Hu Li could not help but shudder. His entire body felt disgusted. "However, Princess Yi Li promised to help me look for Wu Yi and even help me keep an eye on your whereabouts. That's why I stayed." "How did you know that I would definitely come to the Beast City?" Yun Luofeng stroked his chin and continued to ask. Hu Li winked at her seductively. "Based on your personality, if Hong Luan's whereabouts were unknown, would you not appear?" Boom. Unexpectedly, Hu Li had just finished speaking when a powerful aura suddenly came crashing down. His body was instantly thrown out and he fell to the ground in a sorry state with a bang. Yun Xiao tore off his sleeve and furrowed his brows as he wiped her eyes. "Yun Xiao, what are you doing?" Yun Luofeng took a few steps back and asked. "He was making eyes at you. And then?" "I'm afraid that I'll stain your eyes." When Yun Luofeng raised her head, she saw Yun Xiao's serious expression. The corners of her mouth couldn't help but twitch. At this moment, the sound of footsteps could be heard. The one in the lead was a dignified middle-aged man. He was wild and resolute, and his face was handsome. Set off by the group of guards, he seemed to have the demeanor of a king. "Father." Yi Li's expression changed slightly as she respectfully lowered her head and called out. "Yi Li, did you steal your sister's man again?" The middle-aged man's tone was cold as he spoke indifferently. "Father, these people are my husband's friends, so..." The middle-aged man scoffed coldly and glanced at Hu Li in disgust. "For the sake of a man, you've made an enemy of your sister time and time again. Is it really worth it?" Hu Li, who had been called out by the Panther King, leisurely found a stone stool and sat down. A straw hung from the corner of his mouth, making him look like a ruffian. His seductive almond-shaped eyes carried a disapproving smile. Chapter 1584. His disrespect towards him made the Panther King even more furious. "Look, this is the human man you've taken a fancy to? He has no manners at all. It's very obvious that his friends lack manners as well. They didn't even kneel when they saw me." The Panther King's gaze swept towards Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao. His eyes filled with coldness. Yun Xiao's gaze, which was originally on Yun Luofeng, finally slowly lifted and his cold gaze landed on the Panther King. His black robes fluttered despite the lack of wind. He gradually stretched out his hand and a powerful spiritual energy gathered in his palm. "Father!" Yi Li gritted her teeth. "Elder sister, you're snatching a man in front of everyone. Isn't that even worse?" Slap. The Panther King raised his hand angrily and slapped Yi Li across the face. Towards this disappointing daughter of his, he was so angry that his entire body trembled. "Who allowed you to disrespect your elders like this? Do you really think that I won't punish you?" If this daughter's face had not been disfigured, his heart would definitely be biased towards his younger daughter. Unfortunately, his younger daughter's face had been disfigured. In the Beast Continent, which was famous for its beauty, she was destined to be ridiculed. Boom, 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 boom. Suddenly, the Panther King felt the entire ground beneath his feet shake. He turned pale with fright and hurriedly looked towards the source of the energy. In the wild wind, the man was like a cold god of death. It was as if he had stepped through hell, and the murderous aura emanating from his body made everyone tremble in fear. A powerful energy was emitted from his body. Under this energy, the surrounding buildings were swept into the sky, covering the entire blue sky. Then, in front of everyone's eyes, it came crashing down with a loud bang. As the Panther King was facing the epicenter of the energy, he was knocked unconscious on the spot. The guards hurriedly regained their senses and rushed towards the Panther King. "The king has fainted. Quickly save the king." At this moment, no one cared about Yun Xiao and the others. Even the king had been knocked unconscious in one move. How could they, the guards, deal with such a terrifying man? Yi Li's mouth opened wide in shock, as if she had never expected Hu Li's friend to be so powerful. Soon after, she was a little worried. "Hu Li, although your friend is powerful, all the races of the beast race are linked together. Once one race is defeated by the humans, the other races will attack the humans together." She paused and said, "Do you know why our beast city is the closest to the northern continent? That's because our beast city is the weakest and the other races are all stronger than us. Especially the mysterious Dragon Clan and Phoenix Clan. They are both clans that stand above the other major clans." This was what worried Yairi the most. "You're tired?" Yun Xiao turned to Yun Luofeng. What he said was not a question, but a statement. "So, I'll send you to rest." "All right." Yun Luofeng smiled. With Yun Xiao by her side, she felt very at ease. "Hu Li, are you going to leave?" Yi Li watched as Yun Luofeng, Yun Xiao, and the others disappeared into the distance. She pursed her lips slightly, and her tone was filled with reluctance. Hu Li didn't notice her strangeness. After pondering for a while, she said, "It should be. I can help you find the person you're looking for." As long as he could stay for a period of time, Hu Li paused. "I've troubled you for long enough. I can't trouble you any longer. After Yun Luofeng, I'll leave with them and look for Hong Luan." Yi Li sighed. She also understood that she couldn't make him stay. Chapter 1585. The Phoenix Clan. The cries of a flaming phoenix rang out from the top of the volcano and echoed throughout the entire mountain peak. An old man who had been sitting cross-legged in the mountains suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with joy as he said, "Is the master back?" A few years ago, the Phoenix Clan had faced a great crisis. That crisis had caused countless cultivators in the Phoenix Clan to turn into ashes. It was also at that time that a godlike black-robed man had appeared out of thin air and helped the Phoenix Clan resolve the crisis. From then on, they had worshipped this man as the master of the Phoenix Clan. Unfortunately, after that incident, the man had disappeared once again and had never appeared again. Unexpectedly, the fire phoenix that the Phoenix Clan had sent to search for the man had sent news that the man had appeared. This news was so shocking that the entire Phoenix Clan was in an uproar. At the same time, a white-haired man was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed in front of the Dragon Clan's altar. Even though the man was handsome, he could not hide the vicissitudes of life on his face. Suddenly, the man opened his eyes and a sense of joy appeared in his murky eyes. "Someone, quickly gather all the elders of the Dragon Clan. I have an important order." "Yes, my king." A figure appeared in front of the white-haired man and soon disappeared without a trace. The man rose from the mat and placed his hand behind his back as he hurried towards the clan hall. The elders were already waiting quietly in the clan hall. When they saw the white-haired man rushing over, they quickly rose to their feet and asked respectfully, "May I know what orders my king has summoned us for?" The white-haired man strode up to the throne and looked around him with a cold and stern expression. "I have summoned all of you here to announce something." He paused before he continued, "The ancestor of the Dragon Clan has returned." "Ancestor?" The crowd turned pale with fright. Some of them even stood up in shock and could not conceal the excitement on their faces. "My king, is this true? Has our ancestor really returned?" "That's right." The white-haired man nodded. "Thousands of years ago, our ancestor provoked a peerless powerhouse. He claimed that he needed to leave the Dragon Clan and lure that peerless powerhouse away to ensure the safety of the Dragon Clan." At the mention of the past, the white-haired man could not help but feel a little sad. Unfortunately, Ancestor guessed wrongly. That peerless expert did not chase after Ancestor and instead destroyed the dragon clan into pieces. However, Ancestor's selfless spirit still needs us to learn. King, you should tell us where our ancestor is so that we can welcome him back. Actually, I don't know his exact location. After all, my divine sense isn't strong enough and I can only spread it across the entire beast continent. If my ancestor is outside of the beast continent, I won't be able to find him. But just now, a strand of my divine sense sensed my ancestor's presence. He's back. The white-haired man became even more emotional, and his eyes were filled with tears. King, in the current dragon clan, only you have seen our ancestor. We don't even know what he looks like. How are we supposed to find him? One of the elders raised a question. Indeed, in order to find the dragon clan's ancestor, the white-haired man had reached the end of his lifespan. Spiritual beasts may have a long lifespan, and even the weakest humans can live for up to 1,000 years. However, no matter how long a lifespan is, it does not mean that it will never run out. Unless one's power has reached the pinnacle, otherwise, any life will eventually run out of energy. Chapter 1586. Hence, even though the white-haired man had maintained his youthful appearance and body, he had only overdrawn his lifespan in order to subdue the dragon clan. In reality, he could no longer step out of the dragon clan. Hence, he could only rely on the elders to search for the dragon clan's ancestor. I have considered this matter before. Hence, I have specially drawn a portrait of the dragon clan's ancestor. Follow the portrait and you will find him. The white-haired man smiled mysteriously. He then took out a scroll from his sleeve and placed it on the table. The scroll slowly unfurled. At that moment, the portrait of the dragon clan's ancestor fell into the eyes of all the elders. How should they put it? The dragon clan's ancestor's appearance was a little unexpected. On the scroll was a small, emerald green worm. Its entire body was transparent and its large, round eyes were very adorable. If they had not known its identity, perhaps everyone would have thought that it was a harmless worm. King. The elders raised their heads in unison and stared at the white-haired man in astonishment. Are you sure that this is the dragon clan's ancestor? I don't think so. Not only doesn't he look like the dragon clan's ancestor, he clearly doesn't even look like a dragon. This little thing actually has the power to control a member of the dragon clan? Back then, when the dragon clan's ancestor was still around, I was still very young, but I have seen him from afar. He is indeed the dragon clan's ancestor. Furthermore, his power is so great. The white-haired man's eyes were filled with worship and reverence. His expression was as if he was worshipping his own god. Wasn't that right? In the eyes of the dragon clan's ancestor was their god. He was also a selfless god. King, the elders saw the white-haired man's expression and accepted the scroll. They then replied respectfully, "Don't worry, King. We will definitely find the dragon clan's ancestor and bring him back. I am very relieved to leave this matter to you. When the dragon clan's ancestor returns, I can rest in peace." The white-haired man smiled and replied calmly. Beast City. In the guest room, Yun Luofeng was leaning on Yun Zhao's shoulder as he played with Little Worm. Little Worm was furious but did not dare to speak up. It could only sullenly allow Yun Luofeng to play with it. If it had not made a pact with Yun Xiao in order to leave that godforsaken place, it would not be in such a miserable state. Yun Xiao, where did this little worm come from? Why are you at Songshan Mountain? Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows slightly and asked with a smile. Yun Zhao's gaze turned towards Little Worm, his face expressionless. He did not say anything, but he had already used his eyes to express what he wanted to express. Little Worm felt very wronged. He did not dare to resist and could only answer honestly, "Back then, I accidentally provoked a god-level expert." A god-level expert? Yun Luofeng was startled. Did gods really exist on this continent? That divine-level expert's strength was too terrifying, so I fled. Of course, how could I tell others that I was fleeing for my life? So, I told my clansmen that I had provoked a peerless expert. In order to not bring disaster to the clan, I was responsible for luring that peerless expert away. When it said this, Little Worm's face was full of pride, as if it was proud of its intelligence. That godly expert couldn't find me, so he destroyed my territory. Actually, I already knew that godly expert's personality. At most, he would destroy some buildings, and wouldn't harm my clansmen. That's why I was able to escape with my mind at ease. Chapter 1587. Little Worm held its head high. It did not feel that its actions were undignified at all. From its point of view, letting others know that it was being chased by someone on the run would be the most degrading thing. How did you offend that god-level expert? Yun Luofeng's eyes were filled with amusement. The corners of Little Worm's mouth froze and its expression turned awkward. The corners of its mouth twitched a few times, its expression as if this matter was very embarrassing to talk about. Fengge, do you want to be roasted alive or steamed? Yun Zhao's voice was cold and emotionless. Anyone could tell that he was very displeased that Little Worm did not answer Yun Luofeng's question. Little Worm's face instantly paled. It had wanted to use a lie to bluff its way out of this, but after meeting Yun Zhao's cold gaze, it shivered all over. If it was someone else, it might still be able to lie, but the man in front of it had already formed a contract with it. Even if it told a single lie, he would be able to see through it. Many years ago, I knew this god-level expert, but we could only be considered acquaintances. However, Little Worm's expression turned even uglier. One time, I was lying on the ground taking an afternoon nap. That fellow didn't notice that I was taking an afternoon nap. By the time I was startled awake, I had already been covered by his filth. In a fit of anger, I enlarged my body and burrowed into his chrysanthemum flower. Yun Luofeng's fingers paused, and her expression became extremely ugly. She slowly breathed in, and only then did she suppress the urge to throw the little bug out. Mistress, don't you think that fellow has gone too far? Little Worm was very angry. First, he used a pile of shit to bury me. I was just too angry and blew him up. Did he need to chase me all the way to my hometown? Yun Luofeng glanced at Little Worm. You should be glad that he only chased after you. Little Worm blinked and looked at Yun Luofeng in a daze. What did Mistress mean? She actually wanted to be glad that he was being chased after? Yun Luofeng's voice paused before she continued. Luckily, he did not fall in love with you because of this. Little Worm was dumbfounded, as if he did not understand what Yun Luofeng meant. Suddenly, a large hand reached out from the side, picked up the little bug, and threw it out of the window. Yun Xiao forcefully grabbed onto Yun Luofeng's shoulder, forcing her to face him. Her cold black eyes were filled with grievance at this moment. He has taken up too much of your time. It was so long that he wanted nothing more than to slaughter this insect. For the first time, Yun Xiao regretted. He regretted bringing the little worm out. It was very obvious that although Yun Luofeng did not say it out loud, she actually liked this worm very much. This made Yun Xiao very jealous. Yun Luofeng smiled as she stared at the man in front of her. She then pushed Yun Xiao down onto the bed and pressed her arms tightly against the bed. Yun Xiao, are you jealous of a spiritual beast? Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous light flashed in his eyes. Feeling the softness in front of him, the man's lust rushed to his heart. He grabbed Yun Luofeng's arm and pressed her against the bed, kissing her lips forcefully. Yun Luofeng clutched the sheets on the bed tightly. The man's lips were very thin and cold, but they carried a domineering aura. 2 balls of lust could faintly be seen in his black eyes. Those flames seemed to be able to burn one's body with lust. All their clothes were taken off. On the large bed, there were only 2 bodies, entangled incessantly. It was an enchanting room. Chapter 1588. Ely, get your ass out here right now. The next day, an angry shout rang through the entire palace. Ely was just getting dressed with the help of a palace maid when she saw a masked woman rush in from outside. Ely, who was initially shocked, relaxed when she heard the woman's voice. Big sister, why have you come looking for me? Ely, how dare you help an outsider to attack the Panther clan? You've even injured father. Furthermore, my face must have been their doing. The eldest princess was so angry that her petite figure trembled. She pointed her slender finger angrily at Li and gritted her teeth hatefully as if she wanted to tear the person in front of her into a million pieces. Li smiled. Big sister, father had been injured by an external object. No one had done anything. As for you, who knows what kind of illness you've contracted? You're trying to frame us. You. The eldest princess's expression turned even uglier. Indeed, even though everyone knew that Xianxia was involved in this matter, who had seen him make a move? He had defeated father with just his aura? Was that even possible? Li, just you wait, I'll make you regret this. The eldest princess flung her sleeves fiercely and walked out. Li stared at her departing figure and laughed icily. Don't think that I don't know that my big sister was behind the incident when Li's face had been injured. Everyone knows that spiritual beasts are simple-minded and do not know how to scheme. This is because spiritual beasts have lived in the mountains for a long time and do not interact with humans. Hence, they have not learned how to scheme. The beast continent has now become a world of its own. How could the people who grew up in the beast continent be as simple-minded as the other spiritual beasts? Any pure species, once tainted, would no longer be as white as paper. In the rear courtyard, the eldest princess had just entered when a group of handsome men surrounded her from the front. Those men were like the emperor's concubines as they surrounded the eldest princess, waiting for her to dote on them. Get lost. The eldest princess scoffed icily as she kicked the man in front of her and bellowed angrily. This man was rather handsome and had a pure heart and few desires. It was because of his looks that the eldest princess doted on him. Unfortunately, after seeing Xianxia, that kind of exquisite man, the eldest princess actually felt that the male concubines in her courtyard were no longer worthy of her eyes. Even looking at them made her feel disgusted. Since this man rejected me, I must have him. The first princess licked her lips, her eyes filled with greed. In the beast city, neither spiritual beasts nor humans could escape her charm. She was of noble status and peerless beauty. No man would be able to resist her allure. Only two people would dare to refuse her. The first one was Hu Li, and the second one was that cold man in black. The more she refused, the more she wanted it. Even if she had to use all means, she wouldn't hesitate. The first princess walked into the room and closed the door. She asked the guards to stand guard outside the door. She walked to the side of the bed and carefully took out a scroll from under the pillow. She picked up the scroll, walked to the candle and slowly lit it. As the smoke slowly rose, it transformed into a blue dragon. This dragon's eyes were domineering and arrogant. He looked down at the eldest princess as if he was looking at an ant. It was as if no one was worthy of his attention in those blue eyes. What business do you have with me? Chapter 1589. The dragon's voice was very cold, looking down on the first princess. Lord Long, the eldest princess was overjoyed as she hurriedly said, "It's like this, I've recently bumped into a few humans. Amongst them, the woman named Yun Luofeng has the fire spirit fruit that you're looking for." Speaking of the fate between the first princess and this dragon, it was something that happened many years ago. Back then, the young first princess went out to train and encountered a heavily injured dragon. In order to gain the friendship of the dragon clan, the first princess saved the dragon. Before the dragon left, it gave the first princess this scroll so that she could use it to summon it if she was in danger. Fire spirit fruit? Are you sure? Dragon's eyes lit up. The eldest princess' eyes flickered. Unfortunately, this fire spirit fruit was consumed by a woman. So what if I take it? The fire spirit fruit isn't so easily digested. Wait till I find her, kill her and cut open her heart to retrieve the fire spirit fruit. The dragon's voice was filled with disdain. However, my king has recently issued an order for all members of the dragon clan to search for the ancestor. Hence, I don't have the time to retrieve the fire spirit fruit. You'd better send that woman to the dragon clan. With that, the dragon's figure disappeared. The eldest princess was completely dumbfounded. He had used his only chance to save his life by burning the scroll, and this was the result? If she could deal with Yun Luofeng, why would she need to find him? As for this dragon not being able to find the fire spirit fruit in Yun Luofeng's body, it was no longer within the scope of her consideration. her heart was already going crazy with jealousy. What right did this kind of woman have to have such a quality man? Even if she couldn't get this man, she wouldn't let Yun Luofeng take advantage of her. But, now, how was she going to trick Yun Luofeng into joining the Dragon Clan? Looks like this method is useless. The eldest princess' eyes darkened. Now, the only way to deal with them is to seek help from other beasts. Thinking of this, she pushed open the door and walked out. Men, inform the Fox tribe, Eagle tribe, Wolf tribe, and all the other tribes. Just tell them that a human has come to provoke us and injured my father, and we need their help. Yes, First Princess. The guard cupped his fists and retreated. Under the azure sky, Yairi stared at Hu Li, who was standing in front of her. Are you really leaving? Hu Li nodded. Princess Ili, take care. At this moment, Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao walked out. Yun Luofeng glanced at the young girl who was staring longingly at Hu Li, and the corners of her lips gently curled up. Hu Li, it's time for us to go. However, she did not say anything. Instead, she turned to Hu Li and slowly opened her mouth. All right. Hu Li did not notice Princess Ili's strange behavior. He smiled seductively and wanted to walk over to Yun Luofeng's side. However, after meeting Yun Zhao's cold gaze, he tactfully retreated. The few of them quickly walked out of the arched door. Princess Ili watched Hu Li leave. She wanted to ask him to take her with him, but in the end, she couldn't say it. Oh right. Yun Luofeng suddenly stopped. She raised her hand and tossed a porcelain bottle to Princess Ili. The ointment inside can heal your scars. Remember to apply it once in a while. Princess Eli was taken aback. She clenched the porcelain bottle in her hand and bit her lip. Thank you. When Yun Luofeng and the others walked out of the palace doors, this news also reached the eldest princess' ears. She stood up abruptly. Chapter 1590. What did you say? Those humans have left? She clenched her fists. I never thought that they would leave just like that. But it doesn't matter, the beast continent is the territory of us spiritual beasts, they won't be able to escape. At the same time, in a cave in the Dragon Clan, the corners of the man in blue's lips curled into a small angle. His gentle gaze fell upon the woman who was lying on the ice bed. This woman's beauty could topple cities. Her red robes accentuated her domineering and flamboyant aura. However, at this moment, the woman in red was firmly imprisoned by the ice bed, unable to move. She could only stare fixedly at the man in blue with eyes filled with rage. The rage in her eyes looked as if it could burn him into ashes. The man in blue stretched out his hand, wanting to caress the woman's face. Unexpectedly, the woman in red had a fiery temper and bit the man's finger. The man gasped in pain but did not blame her. Instead, he stared at her with a gentle gaze. Hong Luan. Why do you have to do this? Wouldn't it be nice to be my wife? Scram. The woman in red roared angrily. I feel disgusted just by looking at you. Hong Luan, do you know that I've found the whereabouts of the fire spirit fruit? As long as I have the fire spirit fruit, I can save you. Hearing this, the woman in red laughed icily as a mocking smile appeared on her face. Who had caused me to end up like this? Hong Luan, I had fallen in love with you and wanted you to bear my child. I never thought that this would happen. The man in blue furrowed his brows as his handsome face filled with remorse. Unfortunately, I don't like you. She still needed to raise her power and avenge Yun Luofeng. She could never stay here and be the wife of a dragon. Obviously, Hong Luan was still unaware that Yun Luofeng was still alive. Hong Luan, you must be my wife. I will make you bear my child, not a demi-beast human. Once a human and a spiritual beast have a union, the child born can only be a demi-beast human. Regardless of talent or lifespan, it would be greatly reduced. He would never allow his child to be a demi-beast human. If Hong Luan wanted to give birth to a complete dragon, there was only one method. However, that method was extremely dangerous. Otherwise, Hong Luan would not need to rely on this ice bed to survive. However, he really did not understand why Hong Luan would not accept such an outstanding dragon like him. Hong Luan clenched her fists tightly, but she felt weak all over her body. My friend is still alive, she will definitely come to find me. If she comes, even if it means overturning your entire dragon clan, she will still take me away. Yun Luofeng was still alive, she would definitely come to save her. Hong Yuan lowered her eyes slightly, concealing the heartbreak in her eyes. Now, whenever she thought of her old friend's death, she would still feel a heart-wrenching pain, Hong Yuan. The blue-robed man could not help but laugh. Are you joking? Don't you know what kind of existence my dragon clan is? If your friend really dares to come to my dragon clan, he will definitely not be able to return. Hong Yuan smiled coldly and closed her eyes, ignoring the man in front of her, Yun Luofeng. If you were still alive, I believe that you would definitely come to save me. The blue-robed man looked at Hong Yuan and his eyes were filled with exasperation. He then turned towards the dragon clan guard behind him and said, "Go to the beast city and retrieve the fire spirit fruit. I don't really trust the beast clan's princess." "Oh, that's right, the woman with the fire spirit fruit seems to be called Yun Luofeng?" Chapter 1591. Yun Luofeng? Hong Yuan's body trembled, but she quickly regained her composure. Impossible. This Yun Luofeng was definitely not the Yun Luofeng that she was familiar with. It was just a coincidence. Even though Hong Yuan's heart was on the verge of bursting with hope, she still suppressed it deep in her heart. She was afraid that in the end, it would just be an empty joy, the beast continent. In the desolate mountain forest, few people could be seen, and not even a single spirit beast could be seen. Hence, at this moment, Yun Luofeng still did not know that he had caused a stir in the beast continent. Human? A sneaky little head peeked out from the side of the forest, and looked at Yun Luofeng and the others in surprise. "Are you humans new to the beast continent?" Huang Yingying and Hu Li stood by Yun Luofeng's side like guards, and looked at the little boy with vigilance. Don't judge this little boy by his young age. For him to appear in such a place, how could he be an ordinary person? "Or you?" Huang Yingying frowned and asked coldly. "I am the same as you, a human. However, among the humans in the beast continent, the ugly ones are taken as slaves by the beasts, and the good-looking ones are taken by the beasts. My father is the same as you, and accidentally entered the beast continent. If he had not joined the alliance by luck, perhaps he would have been taken away by the beasts." Before coming to the beast continent, Yun Luofeng already knew about the treatment of humans in the beast continent. Even though Huang Yingying had said that humans could not resist the temptation of handsome men and beautiful women, but there would always be humans who were unwilling to be enslaved by the beasts. Hence, the alliance that this little boy spoke of was probably created for this reason. "Have you seen a girl in red called Hong Yuan?" Yun Luofeng thought for a moment and asked. The little boy tilted his head, looking innocent and naive. "She is not part of our alliance." If she was part of the alliance, there was no way he had not heard of her. "How long has your alliance been established?" Yun Luofeng continued to ask. The little boy thought for a moment and said, "About 2 years ago. 2 years ago, the humans of the beast continent were still in dire straits. It was a man who suddenly appeared and established this wind-chasing alliance that gathered the humans of the beast continent together." Wind-chasing alliance? Who is the leader of the alliance? Yun Luofeng stroked his chin and frowned. The alliance doesn't have a leader. The person who established the alliance only called himself the deputy leader. He said that the leader hasn't appeared yet. This wind-chasing alliance was established for an old friend of his. The little boy explained patiently. Then the Vice Guild Master's name, I'm not too sure about that. I only know that the Vice Alliance Master's surname is Nangong. Nangong? Yun Luofeng was startled, but she didn't think too much about this family name. After exchanging glances with Yun Xiao, he once again looked at the innocent and adorable little boy in front of him. "Can you bring us to the alliance?" "All right." The boy smiled innocently, revealing 2 canine teeth. "The Vice Guild leader isn't in the alliance right now, but the others in the alliance are easy to get along with. You can just come with me." Little fellow, Hu Li saw that the little boy wasn't much of a threat, and walked in front of the boy in a very familiar manner. She raised an eyebrow and asked, "Are you a half-beast human?" "Yes, my father had been forcefully taken over by a spiritual beast previously. In the end, he escaped, And when he escaped, he took me with him. The little boy turned to look at Hu Li and smiled brilliantly. I like humans very much, that's why I followed my father to this alliance. Chapter 1592. The little boy's smile was very innocent, as if he was a child who was not familiar with the ways of the world and could easily gain the trust of others. Not too far away, a house appeared in their line of sight. The house was surrounded by willow trees, their branches cascading down and covering the entire yard. When the little boy walked in, a few men and women who were drinking and chatting in the house noticed him and whistled at him. Xiao Yan, you're back? These are Uncle Tian Feng, Uncle Song Mu, Aunt Xiao Shi. These guests are humans who entered the beast continent by mistake, so I brought them back. Xiao Yan's face lit up with a radiant smile. His smile was very comforting, his round little face was like an egg, white and tender. Tian Feng raised an eyebrow and stood up from his chair. He laughed heartily and walked towards Yun Luofeng, saying heartily, since you're all humans, I can represent the Deputy Alliance Leader to invite you to join the Alliance. Please state your names. My name is Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng shrugged his shoulders. This is my man Yun Xiao. The other two are my subordinates, Huang Yingying and Hu Li. Tian Feng and the others' eyes lit up. The woman in front of them was dressed in clothes whiter than snow. Her beauty was enough to topple cities. Among the beastmen, her looks were undefeatable. As for Yun Xiao beside her, even though he was handsome and cold, he was like a loyal dog, silently protecting the woman beside him, not saying a word. However, this man's aura was very strong, so strong that it made one's heart tremble. The main mission of the Wind-Chasing Alliance is to gather all the humans in the Beast Continent and fight against the spiritual beasts. You must have been chased by the spiritual beasts and escaped here. But it doesn't matter, now that you've come to the Wind-Chasing Alliance, we won't let any spiritual beasts bully you. Song Mu vowed solemnly as he patted his chest. I've always wanted to ask you something. Hu Li raised an eyebrow. Since you're being chased by the spiritual beasts, why don't you leave the Beast Continent? Head towards the human territory? What was the purpose of them staying behind? Leave? Are you kidding me? Don't you know that the moment you leave the Beast Continent, the weaker ones will be killed by the people from the Northern Continent, and the stronger ones will be under their surveillance for the rest of their lives? If that's the case, why don't you just fight for your life in the Beast Continent? The one who said this was the only woman among the three. She had a cold smile on her face, but most of it was despair. Xiaoxi, Tian Feng frowned and swept his gaze across Xiaoxi before turning towards Yun Luofeng and speaking in a friendly tone. Not too long ago, I heard a piece of news. It is said that the Panther clan's king has been severely injured by someone and that has angered the other clans in the Beast Continent. Hence, those clans have decided to join forces to kill the human who had attacked the Panther King. The human who injured the Panther King? Yun Luofeng shot a glance at the expressionless Yun Xiao beside her, before retracting her gaze. She helplessly shrugged her shoulders. Looks like such a huge incident had happened after they left the Bee City. Hu Li, who was at the side, was a little worried. No one knew what he was thinking. Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows, a faint smile on his face. Are you worried about the little princess of the leopard race? She had hit the nail on the head and Hu Li's face stiffened. A sense of awkwardness flashed across his face. She's the princess of the leopard race. Those people shouldn't have hurt her. Even though that was the case, Hu Li's heart did not hold much confidence. Chapter 1593. No one knows the eldest princess's personality better than he does. If she pushes all the blame on Yi Li may very well lose her life. This is something that he does not wish to see. If you're worried, I'll let Yingying accompany you to fetch Princess Yi Li. Yun Luofeng raised his eyes. Right now, the goal of those beasts is to find me and Yun Xiao. Hence, she's not in any danger for now. If they wait any longer, that might not be the case. Yun Luofeng had allowed Huang Yingying to follow him because Huang Yingying has completed the inheritance and her powers have increased by leaps and bounds. Under normal circumstances, those beasts would not be able to stop her. All right. Hu Li immediately agreed. He does not have any feelings for Yi Li, but she was his savior. He could not abandon her no matter what. Miss Yun, Where are your subordinates going? Matsumoto stared curiously at Hu Li and Huang Yingying as they walked out. His eyes were filled with shock. Yun Luofeng had transmitted her words directly into Hu Li and Huang Yingying's minds. Hence, these people had not heard her voice. She has always been very vigilant. Even if these people were humans, she would never let them know of her intentions. Nothing. Yun Luofeng did not intend to explain further. Even though Matsumoto and the others were filled with doubts, they did not probe further. Everyone has something that they are not willing to talk about, isn't that so? The next day, a loud rumble echoed throughout the courtyard and frightened everyone so much that they jumped out of their beds. What's going on? Matsumoto was the first to rush out of his room. When he stepped out of his room, he was shocked to see a sky full of beasts. He was so frightened that he broke out in a cold sweat. What's going on? How did the spiritual beasts find this place so quickly? At the same time, the rest of the crowd also rushed out of their rooms. When they saw the ostentatious spiritual beasts, their expressions turned extremely ugly. Lord Matsumoto, could it be those people who had just arrived yesterday? They've brought the spiritual beasts. No one knew who had spoken in the crowd, but it caused the crowd to break into a flurry of discussion. That's right, it must be them. Besides, that woman's subordinates had suddenly left yesterday, so they must have reported our whereabouts to the spiritual beasts. Otherwise, how could the spiritual beasts have found us so soon after they arrived? Everyone couldn't help but be suspicious. They had been hiding here for almost 2 years and had never been discovered by the spirit beasts. How did the spirit beasts find them the moment they arrived? Just as the crowd finished speaking, Yun Luofeng, dressed in white, pushed open the door. Her stunning figure appeared under the morning light. Yun Xiao stood silently by her side. Aside from the woman next to her, her cold and grim eyes could not contain anyone else. Lord Pinewood, I suggest that we kill this human and that kid, Xiao Yan, before the spiritual beasts destroy us. If he hadn't brought these humans back, this wouldn't have happened. We should kill her as well. In the crowd, the man who had slandered Yun Luofeng glanced at her with a cold gaze. His voice was very shrill. Xiao Yan's face paled. He was so frightened that he couldn't even speak. His eyes were filled with grief as he stared pitifully at Pinewood. Enough. Pinewood furrowed his brows. We don't have any evidence to prove that Lady Yun and the others had brought these spiritual beasts. It's best if you don't have any evidence.